Part 17. Everyone knows I'm a good man. Author, Tang Zhongmao. Chapter 161. Chapter 93. In the Queen Mother's palace, the imperial doctor came out of the inner hall with a confused look on his face and shook his head at the nervous Queen Mother. Wei Chen has indeed carefully looked at the prince's body, but there is no injury on his body. He is very healthy. Kong Jian? If it's Kong Jian, how could King Hao think he's only 9 years old this year? The Queen Mother was being supported, her voice trembling anxiously. Are you sure you've checked carefully? The imperial doctor hurriedly knelt down. Maybe Weiken is not good at studying, so he can't find out why the prince lost his memory. Not good at studying? But he is already the best doctor in the imperial hospital. The Queen Mother frowned and waved people off, then turned and entered the inner hall. In the inner hall, Ji Chang's was being served and dressed. When he saw the Queen Mother, he looked over and called out Mother Queen with a smile. He saluted and then said, "Don't worry, Queen. Maybe I have some rare disease. I'll be fine in 2 days." After he finished speaking, he smiled and coaxed, "Although I just saw my current appearance in the bronze mirror, I am sure that it is indeed 6 years later, but when I look at my mother, I am not sure anymore." He opened his mouth and said sweetly, "If it has really been 6 years, why is the Queen Mother not only not old, but also much younger? Could it be that the Queen Mother is really a fairy empress in heaven?" Even though the Queen Mother had been worried about whether her youngest son had some strange disease, she was still amused and laughed after hearing what Ji Chang said. "You kid will make your mother happy." She had almost forgotten that Nagasawa was like this before. Although he was a bit arrogant, he always made her angry every time he got into trouble. Wasn't it because of his mouth? If he causes any trouble, before anyone comes to him, he will already smile and start talking sweetly, and his straightforward flattery will make people fly to the sky. He was originally the youngest one, and every time he made people laugh or cry, he not only couldn't get angry at him, but also felt that his son and brother were really frank and cute. It's just that I didn't expect that Nagasawa, who is now 15 years old, would be very suitable to say such words. In the past few years, Nagasawa's temperament has changed drastically. He no longer visits the Queen Mother from time to time, deliberately acting coquettishly and making childish gestures to make her happy. He no longer grows flowers by himself and delivers them to the Queen Mother like treasures when they bloom, as he did before, saying that he would give the most beautiful flowers to his mother. Emperor Yuan Chen was filial and would give the Queen Mother any rare treasures first. The Queen Mother naturally lacked everything, but this did not prevent her from feeling happy every time she saw those flowers. After all, she hadn't seen a Nagasawa flower for several years. "Okay, Queen Mother, it's okay. Maybe I can just take a nap." "But Queen Mother, you haven't answered my previous question yet. Why have all the people in my palace been changed, and only Sister Ruer is left? Sister Ruer, if I were 15 now, wouldn't she be 27? Why don't I let her go and find a good family for her?" How did the Queen Mother know this? She could only pat her son's hand gently and said softly, "It was you who said you wanted to have some fresh faces to serve you. At first you wanted to send Ruer away to another palace. It was because the AI family wanted to. Ruer has grown up with you since childhood. He is also stable and loyal. That's why he refused to let you stay and kept Ruer. As for the fact that Ruer left the palace to get married, you have never been sad about it. I mentioned it in front of my family, but the AI family didn't know that you had this plan." Ji Chang showed confusion on his face. "It is still possible to change to a fresh face, but Sister Ruer, why should I drive away Sister Ruer? Even if I don't want her to be around, according to my temperament, I must send her out of the palace to get married." The Queen Mother didn't know about this, but she knew that Ruer had a deep relationship with her youngest son. Speaking of it, The reason why she remembered a girl's name and had a good impression of her was because Emperor Yuan Shen had just ascended the throne. 11 years old was still very young for an emperor. The Queen Mother listened to the affairs behind the curtain and helped to hold on for several years. It's just that she went to listen to politics behind the curtain, so the young prince naturally couldn't go with her. The Queen Mother waited until Emperor Yuan Shen was 16 before returning to the harem. In the past 5 years, the young prince was mostly taken by the palace maids and eunuchs. This is also the reason why the Queen Mother and Emperor Yuan Shen doted on him to the point of doting on him. After all, for Emperor Yuan Shen, the Queen Mother really neglected him too much when he was a child, and Ruer was chosen to serve and play with him at that time. Little girl. Later, there were several twists and turns in the court. In order to help Emperor Yuan Shen, the Queen Mother did not care about her younger son. At that time, King Hao was seriously ill, and Ruer accompanied him throughout the whole process. He was close to Ruer, and the Queen Mother could also understand, otherwise he would not be allowed to have a prince call a palace maid sister. Now Ji Changs began to wonder what was going on with him and why he didn't send Ruer out of the palace. The Queen Mother also became confused. Yes, it would be fine if she were replaced by another palace maid. She knew very well how important Ruer was to Nagasawa. In the past 6 years, Nagasawa has not even mentioned a word about sending Ruer out of the palace to get married. Logically speaking, the favored girls will be allowed out of the palace by their masters when they are around 25 years old, just because they are afraid that they will miss the most important thing. In your good years, you will never marry into a good family. Seeing that the Queen Mother was also beginning to think deeply, Ji Changs continued to nuzzle, and when I woke up, Sister Ruer was mopping the floor. I never let her do that kind of work. The material of the clothes she was wearing also looked at no, the jewelry on her head doesn't look good either. Mother, is it Sister Ruer who makes me unhappy? Why does Sister Ruer have to wipe the floor in my palace? Do you know, Mother? The Queen Mother didn't know. She hesitated and said, "You have sent back all the nuns I sent to you to take care of you. You also said that you don't want people around me to follow you. I always feel like everything I do is being watched." Ji Chang suddenly looked surprised. Surveillance. Why do I say that? Queen Mother, didn't you send people to your son to take care of him? Yes, the Queen Mother felt a pang in her heart when he said that. She recalled how uncomfortable she felt when her son sent the person back and said such cold words. She is obviously full of maternal love and hopes to take better care of her son, but she is said to be under surveillance. At that time, she asked angrily, and her younger son asked in a mocking tone why he fell into the water if she was taking care of her. His youngest son fell into the water in his palace and was dying and could not be saved. This has always been a pain in the heart of the Queen Mother. During that time, she had nightmares every night, dreaming that her child was struggling in the water, and finally he was unable to sink to the surface. It can be said that after her youngest son said those words, the Queen Mother felt uncomfortable for a long time, and in the end she could only withdraw the person silently. He guessed that although Nagasawa had an arrogant temper, he had never treated him like this. Maybe those nuns made him unhappy, and he let them out of the palace directly without asking them to stay in his palace to serve them. Although it was already a thing of the past, remembering how chilled she felt after Nagasawa said those words, the Queen Mother could not help showing a bit of sadness on her face. She suppressed her sadness and briefly said what Ji Changs had said. Unacceptable. The memory returned to the 9-year-old young prince slamming the table angrily, with a look of anger on his face mixed with a hint of disbelief. I would actually talk to my mother like this? What was I thinking at the time? Was it water? He pondered for 2 seconds, as if recalling something, and suddenly stood up and grabbed the Queen Mother's hand. "Mother, don't listen to the nonsense I said at that time. The incident of falling into the water was clearly caused by me who asked someone to step back and secretly read the book. He ran out of the window. The Queen Mother's eyes turned red inexplicably when she saw her youngest son, who was worried that she would be sad. "Nagays, my mother knows that you definitely didn't mean to say that. Perhaps those nuns made you angry. You are young after all, so you couldn't help but express your anger. But Aunt Zhang and the others have always been considerate to me. I am very happy that they are taking care of me. What did they do to make me angry? Have you asked them, Queen Mother?" The Queen Mother naturally asked. "It's just that the nuns didn't know anything about it, they just said that they were acting the same as before, but King Hao, who used to thank them for taking care of them, suddenly seemed to be tired of them and didn't want to listen to them anymore." While the two were talking, the sound of saluting suddenly came from outside. Before the salute could even be heard, Emperor Yuan Chen strode in, his brows slightly furrowed, his face full of worry, and he opened the curtain himself and walked in. "Mother and my sons heard that something happened to Nagays and called the imperial doctor." As soon as he came in, he saw his younger brother standing there, smiling heartlessly at him. It didn't look like anything was wrong. Emperor Yuan Chen breathed a sigh of relief and felt relieved. Ji Chang's called him with a smile on his face, "Brother Emperor, you look so majestic now. You even have a beard. You'd better stop growing it. A beard doesn't look as good as without a beard." Emperor Yuan Chen. He subconsciously touched his beard. "What's wrong with you? Haven't I had this beard for more than 3 years?" The Queen Mother asked him to come and sit down, and told him the news that her youngest son had lost his memory for 6 years and was 9 years old again. When Emperor Yuan Chen heard that there was still such a strange disease, he immediately called the imperial doctor. "Okay, the imperial doctor has looked at it. There is nothing wrong with Nagasawa. He just lost the memory of the past 6 years for some reason. There is no problem for the time being. I have lost 6 years of memory, how can I still be unimpeded? I still decree that a famous doctor will be found to treat Nagasawa properly." "Okay, brother, I'm not in a hurry. Why are you so anxious? I forgot to ask my mother just now, brother, how many nieces and nephews have you given me in the past 6 years? Are they cute or well behaved? What's your name? The second princess must be 12 years old this year. Have you started dating her?" Emperor Yuan Chen's original worries were all wiped out by his brother's inappropriate gossip. He reached out and tapped his brother's forehead angrily. "You are really not worried at all? What if it is really some strange disease? It's just now it's okay if I lose my memory, but if I become a fool, I'll see if you'll be happy or not." Deep down, he was actually a little happy that his brother was so close to him. As his younger brother grew older, there seemed to be a layer of separation between the brothers. He no longer teased his brother as unscrupulously as before, and sneaked away to eat roast chicken when he was not in a good mood. Look at the moon and enjoy whether there is a fairy palace and Chang'e on the moon. There is only a sense of unfamiliarity between the brothers. Even sometimes, Emperor Yuan Chen felt uncomfortably that his younger brother was rejecting him. He would have thought at that time that maybe it was like this when he grew up, and the friendship between brothers gradually faded away. Unexpectedly, I can see my brother back to his original appearance again. For a moment, Emperor Yuan Chen even had the idea of it would be good if Nagasawa stayed like this in his heart, but he quickly suppressed it. It's okay for my younger brother to be rebellious, but what if the disease is not cured and there are weird sequelae in the future? He replied, "In the past 6 years, 5 more princes and 3 princesses have been born in the palace. I am looking at the candidates for the second princess's consort. I asked you to help choose them before, but you still thought it was troublesome. Generally, princesses wait until they are 18 to 20 years old before getting married, and when they are 11 or 12 years old, the palace will start to select candidates for their consorts. After the selection is made, I will naturally send someone to say hello and tell the family that I have taken a liking to your son and want him to be my son-in-law. You'd better teach him well and don't let him grow up to be weird. Looks like, if you want to be straight, you can't have weird women around you. Yes, in feudal society, the emperor was so unreasonable. I can have a harem of 3,000 beauties, but my son-in-law can only have a princess. If there are other women, I don't mind changing the princess's consort. As for the original consort, at best, he will no longer be taken seriously, at worst, he will be directly exiled or his house will be confiscated. Of course, in order to achieve the above conditions, the emperor who is the father must have real power. Emperor Yuan Chen is such a powerful emperor. He naturally does not mind supporting his daughters for several princesses. Ji Chang's was quite shocked. I actually find it troublesome. I have always loved the second princess as my own daughter. How could I find it troublesome? Emperor Yuan Chen glanced at his brother speechlessly. You are only 3 years older than the second princess. You are more of a daughter than a playmate. Ji Chang still looked shocked. Brother Emperor, what happened to me in the past few years? Why did I do these things? Emperor Yuan Chen didn't know either. You are at this age when you think the most. Maybe you can wait until you grow up. Commonly known as the second disease. Ji Chang suddenly covered his stomach. I just had the imperial doctor look at me for a long time, and I'm already hungry. Mother, brother, let's have a meal first. I want to eat Pisces today. The Queen Mother looked stunned. You want to eat lian Pisces? Don't you dislike the trouble of fish bones and refuse to eat fish? As soon as she finished speaking, she remembered. The person in front of me is a 9-year-old son, not a 15-year-old. Before Nagasawa was 9 years old, he really liked eating fish. Why are fish bones so troublesome? Aren't the fishes I eat all served with their bones removed? As soon as Ji Chang said these words, the Queen Mother paused slightly. Yes, every time Nagaze eats fish, his servants carefully pick out the thorns to make sure they won't pierce King Hao before presenting them to him. Before Nagasawa was 6 years old, he always thought that fish had no spines. Ji Chang saw that the Queen Mother's eyes were contemplative and he didn't know what she was thinking, so he didn't give any further hints. The time traveler is a modern person and has not inherited the memory of the young prince. When he sees the fish, he feels troublesome and does not want to eat it. He never expected that the prince in the feudal society never had to worry about finding faults when eating fish. If he wanted to, he could lie in bed for 12 hours a day and have people take care of him, including eating, drinking and sleeping. That's enough hints. In fact, Ji Chang's can now directly say that he feels like someone is fighting for his body in his body. His actions are as fierce as a tiger's, and the time traveler cannot argue. But if you say this, you will inevitably have to say that he is the real King Hao. Ji Chang's is usually shameless and shameless, his face is thicker than a city wall, but he can deceive people unscrupulously, and he can also imitate the real young prince like he is now. But facing a truly innocent soul, he was really a bit pretentious. He didn't want to lie to his mother and brother that he was King Hao in front of his mother and brother who loved the young prince. Once said, it seems to have really obliterated the existence of King Hao. He can pretend to be King Hao, or he can fulfill his wish for him, making his relatives think that King Hao has never left, but he cannot say that he is King Hao himself. It seems that if I say it, it will change from shameless to shameless and shameless. Quite hypocritical. Ji Chang's finished eating the hand-picked fish, wiped his mouth with a handkerchief, and was leaning back on the chair to rest with a contented look when he suddenly took a sniff. Are the peach blossoms blooming outside? I seem to smell the fragrance of peach blossoms. After hearing this, Emperor Yuan Chen explained, how can there be peach blossoms in the palace? It's not peach blossoms. I left the palace before. I went to the peach forest at that time. Maybe I got some smell on my body. Ji Chang's immediately looked at him accusingly. Brother, have you forgotten that my mother broke out in rash when she smelled the smell of peach blossoms? When I came back from the peach forest, I didn't even wash up properly before coming to see my mother. Emperor Yuan Chen hadn't heard his younger brother talking to him like this for a long time. He was, no matter how big or small he was, regardless of his superiority or inferiority, but he felt very comfortable listening to him. Before he ascended the throne, the struggle in the harem made life very difficult for him and his mother. It was precisely because of this that Emperor Yuan Chen longed for family affection even more. He never acted like an emperor towards his only biological brother. He never acted like an emperor. It's about giving stars to stars, and giving moon to moon. Nagasawa has always been very cooperative, never caring about his status as emperor, and giving him the family affection he wanted. Every time the brothers quarreled, seeing this boy smiling as if he was getting an advantage, Emperor Yuan Chen felt deep in his heart relaxation. But I don't know since when, Nagasawa has never done this to him again. He bows when he meets someone and never speaks inappropriately. Although this is the situation that should really exist, Emperor Yuan Chen actually felt very uncomfortable. Now that it happened again, his heart felt light and a smile appeared on his lips. How could I not remember that I had already bathed and changed clothes when I returned to the palace? Don't worry, the imperial doctor once said that just a trace amount of fragrance is fine. The Queen Mother will only develop rash if she is in the same room with Peach Blossom. Ji Changs then gave up and turned to the Queen Mother, who was smiling and watching their brothers bickering to please the Queen Mother. Look, Queen Mother, I am still thinking of you. I never go out of the palace to wander around. I always accompany the Queen Mother in the palace. The Queen Mother had not seen this happy scene for a long time. She looked at the two people with a kind and contented smile. Okay, the AI family knows that Nagasawa is the best behaved. It's not like your imperial brother. He often goes out to play in the palace and doesn't know what the Queen Mother should do if something comes back. If Nagasawa goes out, he will definitely bring a bunch of treasures to the Queen. Emperor Yuan Chen smiled helplessly, not angry at all, but actually very happy in his heart. My brother is only 9 years old, why is he so angry? He asked someone to pour water to Ji Changs. Okay, drink your water quickly. Ji Changs took a sip, then suddenly pursed his lips and took another sip, frowning slightly. This is not the mountain spring water I often drink. The eunuch waiting on the side quickly stood up and answered carefully, Your Highness, have you forgotten? You said before that you didn't like drinking this mountain spring water. You thought it had a strong taste, so you specifically ordered your servant to change it. Hasn't it always had a strong smell? I've never liked it either. It's just that I was in poor health when I was a child. Didn't my mother specially find the mountain spring water near the temple for me, hoping to let me be tainted with Buddha nature? Have you been drinking? Ji Changs put the water down with a strange look on his face. It's weird, I'm so weird, my temper has changed. After he said this, he seemed not to take it seriously, and continued to pick up his chopsticks and start picking food on the table. Emperor Yuan Chen's heart suddenly trembled after hearing this. He glanced at his brother hesitantly, his eyes hesitant, but he didn't say anything. After the enjoyable meal, Ji Changs yawned, his face showing sleepiness again. I'm so sleepy, Queen Mother. I'll just sleep in your palace for a while. I'll just eat at your place in the evening. Remember to order some dishes that my son likes. After he finished speaking, he yawned profusely and walked towards the inner hall without any rules. But there were no rules, but he was exactly like the king how the Queen Mother and the Emperor had watched growing up. They have always been so pampered towards Ji Changs that they wish they could go to heaven. It would be strange if he had rules. The Emperor hesitated and looked at the Queen Mother. King Hao's temperament changed before, and it can be said that his temperament changed drastically because of his serious illness. But when the truly familiar King Hao appeared in front of them, both the Emperor and the Queen Mother noticed something. The former King Hao liked Ruer and treated Ruer as if he were his own sister. The former King Hao liked to eat fish, and fish must be included in almost every meal of the day. The previous King Hao had a temperament that liked to act coquettishly, and he had never behaved well. What about King Hao later? He was no longer close to the emperor and the queen mother, and he lost the affection towards Ruer as before. He said that he didn't want to eat fish because fish bones were troublesome, but King Hao had never seen any fish with fish bones since he was a child. By this time, it felt like it was already in front of our eyes, but it was so unbelievable. Can a serious illness really change a person's temperament to this, and even forget that there are no fish bones in the fish? His temperament has changed, his taste has changed, and even his common sense has changed. No one knows what the emperor and the queen mother said. In the inner hall over there, the time traveler opened his eyes and found that he was actually in the queen mother's palace. What's going on? Wasn't he letting someone beat his legs before? He stood up and looked around with a frown. As for the emperor and the queen mother, someone quickly replied that the prince had woken up and seemed to have regained his memory. However, he forgot about the time when he lost his memory and became the prince when he was 9 years old. Everyone knows I'm a good man. Author, Tang Zhonmao. Chapter 162. Chapter 95. Brother Emperor, what's going on, Queen Mother? Why did your son come to the Queen Mother's palace? The time traveler is really confused. In his memory, a second ago he was eating fruit and being served, and he was thinking that he would be 16 soon, and when he was physically capable, he would sleep with someone in the palace who had long been interested in him. This King Hao was really in bad health. Emperor Yuan Chen was so young when he was blessed with a son. Although it was because he became the emperor and for the sake of the country's stability, he had to give birth to a prince as quickly as possible, but they were all born from the same father. Mother's brother, why is King Hao so weak? At 15 years old, even if he doesn't think well, he still can't be happy. Even though it has been 6 years since he traveled to King Hao, the traveler is still aggrieved. Since he has traveled through time, why not let him travel back to Emperor Yuan Chen, and become the emperor directly? Women in the world can choose whatever they want, and there is no need to worry about how to plot to usurp the throne. He just let him wear the clothes of a young prince. What's the use of having the same father and mother? How can there be real family ties in the emperor's family? Even though Emperor Yuan Chen seems to be very kind to him and dotes on him, in fact, he doesn't know in his heart. Why be wary of him? The time traveler fantasizes in his mind every day about how he can kill Emperor Yuan Chen and become the winner in life, which is what he did just now. As a result, I imagined that my vision would go dark, and when I woke up, I would be in the Queen Mother's palace. The time traveler was confused, and so were the Emperor and the Queen Mother. As usual, they should tell him the news that the other party suddenly lost his memory and kept saying that he was only 9 years old, but inexplicably, both of them remained silent. No one said what happened just now. The time traveler looked at the two of them and subconsciously felt that something was wrong. Brother Royal. The emperor looked at his brother. His appearance is still the same, and his voice is still the same. But the clear arrogance and wanton smile just now were gone in his eyes, only suspicion and hesitation remained. When he found himself looking over, he even subconsciously retracted his gaze. It was obvious that he was afraid of the imperial power. Many of the ministers the emperor had met had such a look. But his younger brother was a born prince. He had been unruly since he was a child, and he grew up with his elder brother. How could Nagasawa be afraid of him? There was doubt in my heart. The more I looked at him, the more I felt that the younger brother in front of me seemed strange and scary when he woke up. In the past, if Nagasawa saw him and his mother appear at the same time, the first one to shout would be the queen, not the imperial brother. Filial piety and respect for the queen were engraved in his heart, but since Nagasawa woke up after falling into the water, the first one to shout would always be the queen. They are all royal brothers. Nagasawa. The emperor did not answer the traveler's question, but just asked, "The weather is nice today. Maybe you and I haven't visited the garden together for a long time. Why don't we go out for a walk today? The peach blossom forest in Zhang Iking's family is in bloom. The queen mother loves peach blossoms. Let's go. How about giving some back to the queen?" The time traveler doesn't know how the problem came to this point all of a sudden. He hesitated for a second, then raised his head and looked at the emperor with a smile. "Then I'll listen to the emperor. Brother, why did I come to the queen mother's palace? I remember that I should have been in my own palace just now." The emperor's hands hanging under his sleeves shook slightly. Whenever the queen mother encounters a peach blossom, she gets rash all over her body. My brother cannot forget this. When Nagasawa was 5 years old, he once took Nagasawa out of the palace to play. At that time, he went to the peach forest. He did not allow Nagasawa to pick peach blossoms, so the child secretly picked them and hid them in his sleeves. Later, when he returned to the palace, he presented it to his mother like a treasure. The queen mother's face reacted quickly, and she had difficulty breathing. It took a doctor to get better. That incident frightened Nagasawa so much that he not only stopped seeing peach blossom, but also refused to eat snacks such as peach blossom crisps. 9-year-old Nagasawa could remember this incident. Could it be possible that he at 15 could forget it? He had doubts in his heart, and his gaze towards the traveler gradually lost its warmth. The traveler felt that the emperor looked at him a little differently than before, but he couldn't tell what was different. It seems that there is no longer the indulgent feeling before. Although he kept shouting in his heart that he was not afraid of the emperor, a feudal native, but when the emperor really started to cool down, the aura of a superior person still made the time traveler unconsciously sweat on his back. "Brother Huang, why do you look at me like this?" The more he behaved like this, the more the emperor felt that he had no royal demeanor. Nagasawa is his biological brother, and he has been taught as the only prince since childhood. Every move, every word, even if the rules are not correct, can be said to be royal style. The most important thing about the royal family is pride. But the time traveler in front of him didn't have any pride at all, and the eyes he looked at his brother were full of fear. Nagasawa shouldn't be like this. After the emperor looked at the time traveler and felt uncomfortable, he lowered his eyes, raised the same smile as before, and said, "No wonder you feel strange. My mother had a nightmare before and wanted to see you, and she couldn't stop her. She recently I am not in good health and cannot go to find you by myself, so I will send someone to ask you to come over. I didn't expect people to go there and find you asleep. They didn't dare to wake you up, so they had to carry you here carefully. The queen mother didn't have the heart to wake you up, so she just let you fall asleep like this. So that's it, Tisk, this old woman is too troublesome." In ancient times, there were no cold medicines and antibiotics. Getting sick was not a trivial matter. She was obviously sick and still wanted to see him, but she was not afraid of passing the disease on to him. The time traveler was complaining in his heart. Seeing that the emperor kept looking at him after he finished speaking, he quickly smiled and said, "So that's it? No wonder, I just woke up and thought I was still dreaming." The emperor looked at him with cold eyes. He deliberately said that his mother was ill, but the person in front of him didn't ask what the illness was or whether it was serious. But any filial son would not be like this. Emperor Yuan Chen became more and more sure of his guess. He waved the time traveler to sit down, as if he wanted his brothers to have a heart-to-heart talk. The time traveler didn't want to talk, but since this man was the emperor, he didn't dare to refuse, so he could only sit down reluctantly. I was still feeling unhappy deep down. It would be bad if he didn't become the emperor. He was sleeping soundly in his place. As soon as the queen mother said she wanted to see him, she was still asleep and was carried over. Fortunately, the rebellion is now underway. After killing the emperor, he can sit on the throne and see who else can call him whenever he wants. He was so happy in his heart that he didn't notice that Emperor Yuan Chen frowned slightly, his expression no longer as gentle as before. "Nagaze, you have to be more careful when you leave the palace later. But I still remember that the first time you left the palace, that blind patter stunned you and carried you away. Although the guards were very quick afterward. I rescued you, but since then you have been clamoring to practice martial arts and asking me to find a martial arts master for you. Unfortunately, you are not in good health and it is not easy to learn martial arts." Emperor Yuan Chen said it in a teasing tone. He used to like to joke with his younger brother like this. The time traveler only thought that this was the emperor trying to play the "our brotherhood is deep" thing again. He didn't know what happened to King Hao before, so he could only follow Emperor Yuan Chen's words and say, "No, it's really scary to think about it now, but brother, don't worry, I am already 15 years old this year, who doesn't grow up, the naughty girl wants to kidnap me." The emperor silently picked up the teacup on the table and took a sip of tea. The Queen Mother, who was listening to the seemingly normal conversation between the two brothers, also turned cold. The mother and son looked at each other, feeling a little relieved. There were times when Emperor Yuan Chen came out of the palace, but whenever Emperor Yuan Chen came out of the palace, he was not surrounded by cheers from the front and back, and the guards around him were able to form a personal wall, let alone for sex. Ordinary people would stay away when they saw this posture from a distance. This looks like a noble person, and no one who is short-sighted would offend him. Naturally, King Hao has never been knocked unconscious by Huazi, and he has never mentioned that he wants to learn martial arts. Both the Queen Mother and Emperor Yuan Chen remembered it very clearly. King Hao has been fond of studying since he was a child, and he avoided practicing martial arts whenever he could. When he was weak due to a serious illness in his childhood, Emperor Yuan Chen wanted him to practice martial arts to strengthen his body. Just like that, King Hao still cried and howled. For several days, I refused to practice martial arts no matter what. I would avoid the martial arts training grounds whenever I saw them. Can he forget that the Queen Mother is allergic to peach blossoms? Can he forget that there are no fish bones in the fish he eats? Can he forget that he was abducted as a child? Can he also forget his own preferences? Neither the Queen Mother nor Emperor Yuan Chen were easy to deal with. Just by looking at each other, they both knew that the other party also knew it. It's not that they were stupid before. But who would suspect that their relative has changed into a different person, especially when the other person is still trying to maintain the relative's temperament and way of speaking? But the time traveler himself is not very clever. He only relies on his young age and the love of the Queen Mother and Emperor. Now that Ji Chang's has come out to wander around, he doesn't need to do anything more. He doesn't even need half an hour. Queen Mother Yuan Chen the Emperor had already realized something was wrong. They didn't fall out directly, but coaxed the time traveler to go to the inner hall. "You go to the study room and read a book first, and I'll be here to handle some government affairs." The time traveler did not become suspicious and turned around and entered the inner hall. "Someone is coming." As soon as he left, Emperor Yuan Chen immediately called out, "Keep an eye on King Hao and order him to go on. No one is allowed to mention the matter of his loss of memory in front of King Hao. He will only be treated as if he was carried here in his sleep. If King Hao knows about it, I was so frightened that I wanted to kill that person's head. Yes. The Emperor's Majesty is greatest in the palace." Once these words came out, no one would say another word to the time traveler. Now, the Emperor and the Queen Mother could discuss together what should be done. You have to face it even if you don't want to. Their closest relative now seems to have been replaced by another person. On the time traveler's side, he was in a good mood and entered the study room. He looked through the books and found nothing he wanted to read. In ancient times, there were neither game consoles nor TV sets. There were only so many things to play with. At first, he thought of reading books to pass the time. However, he was not like the previous King Hao who naturally loved reading. These ancient times books written by human beings have no interest in him at all. Boring. Just bear with it a little longer, and wait until your body matures and you will feel better. When he kills the emperor, he will have 3,000 beauties in the harem, including as many beauties as he wants. By the way, I heard that the wife of the Queen Mother's nephew is a great beauty. The whole capital knew that Emperor Yuan Chen originally wanted to let her entering the palace. I didn't expect that she would not be happy to enter the palace. During the draft, the family stuffed money into it. Later, she married into the Queen Mother's family. This is still a cold beauty who doesn't like fame, wealth, and imperial power. He likes. When the time comes, when he sits on the throne of emperor, he will announce the other party to the palace and achieve good things. It's a beautiful thought. Just as he was thinking about happiness, a voice suddenly appeared in his brain. The time traveler was so frightened that he almost jumped. Who? Who? Ji Chang's yawned in consciousness. I am the new owner of this body. Traveler. His body stiffened and he looked around in fear. Ji Chang's, stop fussing, I said it was in my body. I said, you have occupied King Hao's body for so long, it's time to give it to others. What do you mean? I am King Hao. Come on. Ji Chang sneered, and everyone could hear the mocking meaning in his words. You can fool the ancient people, but you can't fool me. The real King Hao has long since fallen into the water and died. As for you, you just took advantage of him, against his identity. Tell me how shameless you are, taking the body of King Hao, and killing his imperial brother. Even if this matter were put in modern times, you would definitely be scolded to death. Ancient people, modern times. There is also the death of the real King Hao. These are the deepest secrets in the heart of the time traveler, and Ji Chang said them in such a casual tone. Cold sweat broke out on his forehead, and his hands were clasped together tightly. Are you a modern person too? What do you think? Ji Chang's did not answer and asked directly back. The time traveler gritted his teeth. What did you mean when you just said that you are the new owner of this body? I am the real King Hao now. If you need a body, for the sake of us being both modern people, I can help you. You can find a body of whatever kind you want, but this body won't do it. This is not your decision. Ji Chang started to talk seriously. I have the greatest affinity with this body, and so do you. Either one of us will disappear, or we can only compete and coexist. Aren't you a time traveler? You don't even know this, so how did you travel through time? Traveler. How does he know how he traveled through time? He just died, and when he woke up, he found that he had become King Hao. Ji Chang saw that he was frightened by him and continued to talk nonsense. To tell you the truth, the two of us can coexist, but it must be night and day. One can fall asleep and the other can come out. Of course, I am more of a Buddhist. If you agree, I will accept this coexistence. They are all modern anyway, and I don't want to kill them all. The traveler's forehead was still sweating. After a while, he asked, what if we don't coexist? If we don't coexist, one will live or die, but give up. Although I can't snatch you away now, you seem to be someone who doesn't know how to repel souls. Even if you don't agree to my coexistence, you definitely won't be able to repel me. After I get used to it for a few years and become familiar with this body, I will be able to expel you naturally. It would be better if you agreed to coexist and let the two of us live in the same body. Live in one body? How can it be? He traveled across time to pursue his ambitions, conquer all the beauties in the world, sit on the throne, and do whatever he wants. In the past 6 years, he had worked hard to pretend to be King Hao, and finally figured out the situation here. Why would a passerby have to share all this with him? Travelers are 10,000 unhappy. But Ji Chang's was right, he would not exclude other souls at all. What if he didn't agree and the other party got familiar with this body and directly excluded him? He didn't doubt that Ji Chang's had lied to him. The fact that there is another time traveler has completely occupied his entire brain, and he has no time to think about other things. Okay, I promise you, we can be considered brothers in need and should support each other. The time traveler lowered his voice and tried to coax people down first. Ji Chang's was very easy to coax. Okay, let's make an agreement from now on. I will come out when you fall asleep, and you will come out when I fall asleep. By the way, you must stay away from those monks. Some monks have good vision and can tell how many souls there are in a body. If they find out, you and I will definitely be driven out randomly. Okay, I'm sleepy. I'm going to rest now. I'll come out when you fall asleep. The time traveler stood stiffly on the spot and waited for several minutes before tentatively calling out, "Are you still there? I have something to discuss with you. If you're still here, just answer my question." No one answered him. He breathed a sigh of relief, unclenched his fists, and his eyes fell on a piece of white paper on the table. It has been 6 years since I traveled through time, and now a second time traveler has come over. I can't drive him away. This is really tricky. But it is certainly impossible to share an identity with the other party. With his ability, he traveled to King Hao, and the rebellion was about to begin. He would soon sit on the throne and have a harem of 3,000 beauties. At this time, someone wanted to share it with him. Share your uncles. Fortunately, the later time traveler looked a bit silly, so he just let him believe him after some coaxing. He was really naive. He had to think carefully about what to do about this matter. While the time traveler was thinking deeply, the Queen Mother and Emperor Yuan Chen had already summoned all the maids and eunuchs who had been serving King Hao as quickly as possible. Mammy, who has been living in the palace for 6 years, recalled, "If there is any difference, although His Highness looks arrogant, his temper has always been very peaceful. If he sees a wild cat in the palace, he will let me down." The first time someone went to feed her, it felt different. It seemed to be the day after she woke up from a serious illness. At that time, His Highness was ill. Ruer was worried that His Highness would be bored while recuperating, so she specially asked someone to bring a small breast. The cat came and said that His Highness could play with the kitten, but His Highness didn't like the cat at all, and even disliked the fact that it was dirty, so he asked us to throw it out. But that milk cat was His Highness's favorite one in the past. Before he fell into the water, he told the slaves and others that he wanted to take the cat to his side and keep it after he was 1 month old. He also discussed with the slaves and others how to deal with the Queen Mother. The Empress said that she would only allow him to raise a cat. Mammy continued, "As for hating cats for being dirty, there was a cat that got all muddy in the past. His Highness asked us to boil hot water and give it a bath ourselves. After that, we kept holding it to bask in the sun. Then the big cat came. Then he reluctantly returned the cat to the female cat. As you know, Queen Mother, His Highness has been serving as a slave since he was a year old. He obviously likes cats very much and is very patient in doing things. He will never dislike the dirty cat." Dirty. Xiao Zizi, who was driven away, also said, "His Highness used to be interested in the mellowness of the slave. He wanted to leave the slave because he looked like him. Every time His Highness was unhappy, he would laugh out loud when he looked at the slave and said that he was a slave. He was really cute, like a meat bun, but when His Highness woke up from his illness, he directly asked why he had such a fat person to take care of him, and then he had the slave sent away. One of the personal maids who was replaced said, 'This slave is average looking.' One time she fell down while walking and her face was disfigured. At that time, the slave was covering her face and crying. His Highness passed by. Knowing that the slave was afraid that no one would want to marry her in the future, he said that, 'Just following His Highness, the servants around His Highness King Hao will be married even if they are disfigured.' She sobbed and said, 'When I first served His Highness, many people laughed at the scar on my face. His Highness was furious and ordered that no one should laugh at me or talk about the scar on my face. But later, His Highness fell into the water. The first time he saw the slave, he frowned and asked why he wanted a disfigured person to serve him, and ordered the slave to be sent away. The Queen Mother, the slave has been serving His Highness for 3 years, and His Highness has never mentioned it. It's impossible for the slave to be like this after a serious illness. There are some things that I just can't help but check. These palace people may not have noticed something was wrong in their hearts, but they couldn't do anything. After all, it is normal for a person's temperament to change after getting sick. What's more, this is His Royal Highness King Hao, His Majesty's biological brother. If they dare to spread rumors casually, the whole family will be killed. But if you don't say it yourself, Your Majesty and the Queen Mother let them say it, which is a completely different matter. The first person to speak felt frightened, but as they got to the back, the rest of the people spoke more smoothly. No one is deaf or blind. The changes in His Highness King Hao began after he fell into the water. Not only did his temperament change, many things were clearly said by His Highness himself, but it was also him who was forgotten later. Forgetting one thing can also be said to be a noble person who forgets many things. 2 pieces, 3 pieces, a dozen pieces. By the time we got to the back, almost everyone present knew it. His Royal Highness, King Hao, has not been the same King Hao since he fell into the water. The maids who had been favored by King Hao didn't know what their expressions should be for a moment. They used to think that King Hao had changed. But it turns out that His Highness has not changed, but was robbed of his identity by an evildoer who doesn't know where he came from. The expressions of the Emperor and the Queen Mother were completely heavy. At this time, someone reported that King Hao wanted to see the Emperor. "Mother, my sons and ministers will go." The Emperor comforted the Queen Mother and strode out. He wanted to see what this monster was going to do. The time traveler met the Emperor. The first sentence is, "Brother Emperor, there is an evildoer causing trouble around my brother. Please ask my brother to take me to Mount Wutai and let the master drive away the evildoer." The Emperor was stunned and asked, "Nagaze, how old are you this year?" The time traveler was confused when asked, and subconsciously replied, 15, "What's wrong, Brother Huang?" 15. Emperor Yuan Chen's eyes gradually became cold. "He wants to take over my emperor's brother's body and go to Mount Wutai to drive him away, haha. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Everyone knows I'm a good man. Author, AncientChina. Chapter 163. Ji Chang's knew before that this time traveler was brainless, but he didn't expect him to be so brainless. He had just picked up the shovel and dug a shovelful of soil, and the time traveler couldn't wait to dig the hole himself, and when he was done, he lay down in it. If Emperor Yuan Chen and the Queen Mother were just guessing before, then after the time traveler proposed to go to Wutai Mountain to eliminate the evil in his body, they were completely sure that the person who had occupied their body for 6 years was an evildoer. But I don't know what this monster did to occupy Nagasawa's body for 6 years. Emperor Yuan Chen did not act rashly, but agreed with a smile. The time traveler breathed a sigh of relief. Although that person said he was randomly selected, as long as he established his identity as King Hao, he didn't believe that the people on Mount Wutai would dare to get him out. As for the person hidden in his body, a newcomer who has just arrived may not even know what is going on in this dynasty, but he still wants to steal his body. The trip to Mount Wutai was arranged quite quickly. The time traveler had no idea that Emperor Yuan Chen and the Queen Mother were already suspicious of him, so he confidently followed him to Mount Wutai. The master of Mount Wutai indeed has 2 brushes. Discovering that His Highness King Hao had 2 souls in his body, he looked at Emperor Yuan Chen with some hesitation. "Your Majesty, there are indeed 2 souls in His Highness's body, but I have never seen your Highness." I can't tell which one is the evil ghost that robbed your highness's body. There is no need to distinguish here. Ever since the voice in his body told him that it would only appear when he fell asleep, the time traveler had been trying to stay awake. Even if he reached Wutai Mountain at the fastest speed, a day and a night had passed. He was sleepy. If it doesn't work, he becomes irritable when he speaks. I am standing in front of you, can't you still see that I am the real King Hao? The one hidden in my body is just an evil ghost with a remnant soul, and it is ridiculous that he still wants to take over my body. He has no scruples about his attitude at all. King Hao is flamboyant, arrogant, and likes to lose his temper. The more he behaves like this, the more he can prove that he is the real King Hao. However, he didn't notice that Emperor Yuan Chen looked at him with a terrifyingly cold gaze. Translating what the time traveler said just now, it fell into the ears of Emperor Yuan Chen that this guy not only occupied the magpie's nest, but also wanted to drive away his younger brother, the real owner of this body. After hearing this, do you still want to kill them all? Emperor Yuan Chen asked directly, Master, since you can see that there are two souls in King Hao's body, can you really not tell which one is the real King Hao? This. The master hesitated for a few seconds, and then slowly said under the confident gaze of the traveler, I don't dare to say for sure, but at present, it seems that it is the one in His Highness's body, and it seems to be more consistent with His Highness's body. The traveler's original confident expression immediately changed. What do you mean? Why do you mean he is more compatible than me? I am King Jin Hao. He is a lonely ghost who has only been here for a few days. Why should he be more compatible than me? His face was ferocious and showed no royal demeanor. Emperor Yuan Chen looked at the time traveler coldly, and really couldn't figure out how he could think of such a person as Nagasawa in the first place. The old monk was not angry, but his attitude was still slightly hesitant. Your Majesty, I really can't tell the difference. It's up to your Majesty to make the decision. Emperor Yuan Chen only glanced at him and guessed that the old monk must have determined that the one in his body was the real King Hao. However, King Hao was deeply involved. If he made the wrong choice, he would have killed the real King Hao. The monk just didn't dare to choose for himself. Brother Emperor, of course you have to choose me. I am your younger brother. You can definitely tell whether I am the brother emperor or not. The time traveler was also a little panicked at this moment. The reason why he came to Wutai Mountain was not because he came to this body first. For 6 years, he has completely regarded King Hao's body as his own. That latecomer has only been here for a long time, but when it comes to the old monk's mouth, he becomes more suitable than him. He looked hard at Emperor Yuan Chen, trying to make him choose to stay. Emperor Yuan Chen looked quietly at the face of his younger brother in front of him, and suddenly asked, Nagaze, do you still remember that when you were 8 years old, the border chaos had just subsided? At that time, the emperor once said that the emperor brother will definitely protect you and your mother for a safe life. Remember, I remember. How could the time traveler know whether he was 8 years old or not? He couldn't wait to admit it and looked at Emperor Yuan Chen anxiously, Brother, you must protect me and drive out the evildoer from my body. Emperor Yuan Chen looked indifferent and had no intention of replying. With this attitude, no matter how stupid he is, the time traveler still feels something is wrong. The expression on his face slowly became hesitant, and he shouted guiltily, Brother Emperor. Emperor Yuan Chen, I have never said such words to you. Tell me, how do you remember it? Traveler. Emperor Yuan Chen, in the past, I only thought that Nagasawa was not as well behaved as he was when he was older. His sudden change in temperament was due to an illness. Now it seems that it is you, a monster, who has taken over my brother's body and used his identity with his appearance and behavior. You are just trying to occupy the magpie's nest, but you actually want to drive away the real Nagasawa, which is despicable. He turned his head and looked at the old monk, Master, drive him away. The real King Hao Ji Chang's is in your body. Brother Emperor. It's not what you said at all. I didn't. This one in my body is really not King Hao, Brother Emperor. The time traveler was really confused. Ever since he traveled through time, he felt that he was standing at the top of modern times, looking at all the indigenous people of this era with critical and disdainful eyes. What do the natives know? They didn't know that the earth was round, and they didn't know that there were no dragons in the world. How could a modern time traveler like him know so much? Speaking of which, his status as King Hao made it easier for him. If he were reborn as an ordinary citizen and still had the same aloof attitude, he would be taught how to behave in less than half a month. 6 years of smooth sailing meant that he had learned nothing in the past 6 years. If he wanted to rebel, it would be like playing house. There was another soul in his body. He didn't want to quietly kill the other person. He actually asked the emperor for help. He was probably used to using King Hao's body and had long forgotten that he was also a fake. In the past, Emperor Yuan Chen only showed tenderness to his family in front of the time travelers. This also made the time travelers look down on him and felt that he had no imperial power at all and that he only came to power suddenly because of the death of the previous emperor. But now, after it was confirmed that the person in front of him was not his brother at all, Emperor Yuan Chen, who really showed off his aura, was so powerful that the time traveler was speechless. He didn't know how to defend himself, so he could only stammer and call out to his brother. You don't have to be pretentious. Emperor Yuan Chen was really tired of this monster begging for mercy in front of his younger brother. If it was the real Nagasawa who knew that he did not believe that he was his younger brother, he would not beg for mercy in such a humble way, but would first ask him why he believed that he was his brother. No real brothers. He directly stated everything he had discovered yesterday. Tell me, you evildoer, what method did you use to get into King Hao's body and seize his body? After saying that, Emperor Yuan Chen still stared at the time traveler suspiciously. Why has Nagasawa been suppressed by you all the time? What kind of magic did you use? Traveler. He doesn't know any magic. He is just a time traveler. What other magic can he have? He opened his mouth to argue, but Emperor Yuan Chen had already waved his hand. In the garden that seemed deserted just now, secret guards jumped out almost immediately. Keep an eye on him. Emperor Yuan Chen said a word, and the time traveler was completely controlled without even having a chance to explain. No hesitation, no free time, not even a chance to say a word. This is the true imperial power of the feudal dynasty. His former superiority was just based on his identity as King Hao. Because this is the body of King Hao, even if Emperor Yuan Chen hated the monster who stole his brother's body, he could not do anything to him. He just locked him in the dungeon. In order to prevent him from getting sick, the dungeon's layout is also very gorgeous. It only happened for a moment. The time traveler never thought that one day his identity would be revealed. That's not how it's written in time travel novels. Even if it is discovered that he is not King Hao, he is a modern man, he has modern technology, and he can bring changes to the world. Isn't he better than that arrogant King Hao? In the dungeon, the time traveler tried to explain loudly that he was King Hao at first, but when he heard from his guard that Master Wutai Mountain was preparing tools to drive him out of King Hao's body, let the real King Hao after the king came back, he started to panic completely. He traveled through the world in a daze and didn't know anything. Naturally, he didn't know what would happen if his body was touched. Will it disappear completely, return to modern times, or have a new body? The unknown is the scariest thing. If he still had some endurance as an adult before time travel, then in the past 6 years, King Hao, who has been accustomed to being aloof and favored, could not imagine how miserable he would end up if he lost everything. Ji Changs watched all this happen, watched the time traveler panic, watched the time traveler want to explain but couldn't explain why, and yawned calmly. It seems like you are about to be driven away, which is really gratifying. Don't worry, although I am not King Hao, in this body, I can definitely do better than you. What nonsense are you talking about? I'm not King Hao, are you? They can't tolerate a fake like me, how can they tolerate you? Just look at it, I've still lived here for 6 years, I know how can you deceive them? You know nothing. Who can you deceive? But stop talking. No matter how much you talk, you can't change the fact that you stole King Hao's identity. What's the use of telling me? It's better to say it to the emperor and the old monk. The time traveler felt extremely innocent. Did I steal that? It's not like I voluntarily traveled through time. I entered his body as soon as I died. Do you think I'm willing to do this in such a feudal and backward place? Oh, you are quite aggrieved. Ji Chang's, he, okay, you didn't come here voluntarily, it's always you who wants to rebel, right? King Hao and his emperor brother have a deep love for each other, what about you? If you use his body to rebel, you won't be afraid of the ghost of King Hao coming to you for dreams. The time traveler stopped talking. Ji Chang's continues to worry. I have been observing you for several days. Can you tell me what you think about every day? Don't you want more and more women in the future, or do you want to be famous and famous forever? Do you have that ability? You can't even write. If you hadn't used the identity of King Hao, how well do you think you could have hidden it in the past 6 years? Approving memorials, supervising civil and military officials, and paying attention to world affairs, do you think it takes no effort to do these? As long as you eat and sleep every day, the emperor gets up at 4 o'clock every morning, can you do that? He can review memorials all day long, can you? You can't do anything, but you dream of being number one. Do you really think that if you occupy a body with good looks and abilities, you will be able to do it yourself? But pull it down, no matter who you fall into, you are you. You will never learn the advantages of King Hao. He said so many words in one breath, and he didn't feel tired. On the contrary, he almost made the time traveler angry to death. Ji Chang's knew how the time traveler would react, and he did it on purpose. There are 3,000 big worlds and 3,000 small worlds. With so many worlds, it is natural that time travelers are indispensable. However, if you want to travel back and forth, you must obtain the consent of the original owner of the body. If someone dies and you come in, that's fine, but at least the other person's relatives and friends are sincere to you. You don't just treat yourself like the original owner, but treat his relatives and friends as if they were your own, so don't harm others. Ji Chang's had heard of this kind of person before. They are called plunderers, not plundering finances or status, but plundering bodies. Traveling through various worlds, looking for good prospects who are good in all aspects. If you find the one you like, you can directly squeeze into this person's body and compete with the body owner for control of the body. Generally, such people have strong telepathy. In order not to miss, they always look for young children. Children are not sensible and have weak mental power. Naturally, these predators can easily take away the control of these children's bodies. Right. In order to live in this world instead of each other and not be excluded from the world consciousness, the predators will personally wipe out the souls of these children. When they disappear, a suitable soul vacancy will be created in this world, and the predators will naturally fill it. Ji Chang's met him several times when he was on a mission. Most of these predators had no feelings for the original owner's family. In order to gain rights in the world, they would rebel and cause civil strife. If they won, they would sit in high positions and be happy. If they lost, they would be happy. Leave this shell behind and find another suitable body. As for whether the original owner's family was implicated by him, it's none of their business. This time traveler is not a plunderer, but he is more shameless and hateful than a plunderer. Ji Chang's continued to scare him. Do you know what will happen if you are kicked out? Without your body, you can only become a remnant soul. When the wind blows, you will be blown away. Wild dogs can see you and will chase and bite you. And most importantly, you will slowly disappearing. Do you know why? Because there is no body for you in this world, the consciousness of the world does not recognize you, and will not send you to the place where the dead go. So, what are you fooling around with? If you could act like a real king, how would the emperor not believe you? Following Ji Chang's words, the time traveler's complexion gradually began to turn pale. No, I can't leave this body. I came from time travel and I am the protagonist. How could the protagonist be driven away? Hey, I'm still the protagonist. How could there be a protagonist with such evil views like you? Speaking of the protagonist, Ji Chang's feels that he is quite like the protagonist. Looking at him, he is smart, honest, and he is also very kind. Thinking about it, it's quite beautiful. This world is really not difficult. He was struggling so hard. On the one hand, he was pretentious and didn't want to really take away King Hao's body. On the other hand, he was also wondering why this time traveler had to deal with so many things in the original timeline. Please make some compensation. He continued to make some random guesses and got it right. Do you remember how you died when you died? Tisk tisk tisk, I heard that those lonely ghosts will repeat their death process over and over again. If the way of your death is very painful, then you will be miserable. If you have to repeat it every day, it will hurt again. If you repeat it 10 times, it will hurt 10 times. Moreover, if no one worships the lonely ghosts, they will be hungry, very, very hungry. Have you never felt what it feels like to be hungry? I've experienced it, and it's an uncomfortable feeling. Anyway, it's quite exciting. I still want to see what you're like when you're hungry. The time traveler's face could no longer be described as pale, and now it was completely green. You are trying to scare me. Scared or not, won't you know when you are kicked out of this body? Anyway, now you can't produce any evidence that you are King Hao. Emperor Yuan Shen has determined that I am the real King Hao and treats you as a monster. I have nothing to worry about and am just waiting to come out and occupy this body. When the time comes, I will do well by being filial to my mother, being a good person, and treating the emperor as a good brother. Traveler. His mind was not very good to begin with, but now that he had suddenly changed a lot, and that Ji Chang's was fooling him again and again, he really hesitated. In the evening, Emperor Yuan Shen received news that King Hao was making trouble to see him, and also said that he had something very important to tell him. After all, this monster still took over his brother's body. After thinking about it, he went anyway. The time traveler knew that he could not argue no matter how hard he argued, so he simply explained his origins clearly. Emperor Yuan Shen's expression was quite difficult to explain. You mean, you are from 700 years in the future? The time traveler nodded. Emperor Yuan Shen, my brother is already dead. Did you enter the body after his death? The time traveler nodded quickly. I really didn't kill him. How could I have that ability? It was because of some strange combination of circumstances that I came here after he died. Emperor Yuan Shen, Nagaze is dead, then who is the other person in the body? He is a time traveler like me. He is also a modern person. He came here just to snatch this body. Brother Emperor, although I am not the real King Hao, I have called you Brother Emperor for 6 years. How many more of us are there? The young master also has some affection. What about him? Do you really want to drive me away for him? Emperor Yuan Shen, haha. You still want to deceive me? The other person in your body is clearly my emperor's brother. Now, you still want to deceive me and let me kill my emperor's brother and leave you. Traveler. It's really not true. He is really a time traveler too. He is the same as me. However, no matter what he said, Emperor Yuan Chen always looked unbelieving. The time travelers are almost desperate. He had obviously told the truth, so why did the emperor just refuse to believe it? This guy in his body is clearly the same as him, why should he drive him away and leave the other person behind? Ji Changs casually said, "Don't even think about it. With your comparison, no one will think that I am fake. Speaking of which, I would like to thank you. If you hadn't been righteous and set a bad example in 6 years, I can't sit back and enjoy the benefits as soon as I come here." Traveler. Now it seems that it is impossible to persuade the emperor to keep him. But he must not become a lonely ghost. Do you think I will just disappear? I have a lot of modern technology in my mind. Even if I don't remember it clearly, as long as I take it out, I will ensure that this feudal emperor gives up on you. This is something that can change time. Ji Changs, why didn't you take it out before? Traveler. He didn't just want to keep these as his own political achievements, he wanted to bring down Emperor Yuan Chen. If he really handed over those technologies to Emperor Yuan Chen, wouldn't it be strengthening the enemy's power? Travelers are full of confidence. The things he can bring out are enough to change a country. Emperor Yuan Chen is the emperor, so I don't believe he can resist such temptation. He was full of confidence and felt that his stable position was just around the corner. 3 days later, the soul was sent to the body of a farmer who had just died of illness, and the time traveler opened his eyes with a look of sadness on his face. The boss is still the same boss, but this time, instead of the gorgeous treatment, there are only torture instruments all over the wall. Ji Chang stood behind Emperor Yuan Chen and looked at him gloatingly. When he saw him looking towards him, he winked at him proudly. It is true that Emperor Yuan Chen could not resist the temptation presented by the time traveler, but why did he have to choose one of the two? Brother Emperor. Brother Emperor, look at the man standing behind you, look at him. He is also a fake. He became a prisoner, but the other party took his place and became the noble prince. The time traveler's mentality collapsed and he grabbed the railing and roared. Then, he watched helplessly as Ji Changs, who was full of pride just now, grabbed Emperor Yuan Chen's sleeve and frowned. "Brother Emperor, who is this person? Why did he call you Brother Emperor?" Traveler. What are you pretending to be? You faker. Emperor Yuan Chen saw the crazy time traveler and stretched out his sleeves to block his brother's face with disgust on his face. "Nagaze, dear, this is a lunatic. I just brought you to see him." This gesture of protecting a weak younger brother made the time traveler even more crazy. He is also a time traveler. He is also a time traveler. It's a pity that after so many lies were told, no one believed the truth, at least not even Emperor Yuan Chen. He said to the guard, "Let him come up with ways to make our country stronger. He must come up with at least one idea in a month, and it must be useful. If he refuses, he will be tortured until he can breathe." After finishing speaking, his tone towards Ji Changs became gentle again. "Okay Changs, Brother Huan will take you back. Didn't you say that you want to send Ruer off to get married? You should carefully find the candidate." The two brothers left together, and when they were far away, they could still hear the heartbreaking voice of the traveler. He is really a time traveler. He is not King Hao. Since the 10th year of Yuan Chen, unprecedented changes have taken place in this country. One after another, novel objects appeared that benefited the people and could vigorously develop the economy. Not only did the court make a lot of money, it also had enough energy to build an army. The happiness of the people soared, and the salaries of court officials also soared. Emperor Yuan Chen was no longer His Majesty in the minds of everyone, but their belief. Compared with Emperor Yuan Chen, his compatriot King Hao seems much more ordinary. King Hao never married a wife all his life and only raised a bunch of cats. His lifespan was shorter than that of his brother, but he still died. After his death, Emperor Yuan Chen, who had protected his younger brother all his life, ordered craftsmen to be buried in King Hao's tomb. Make many cat statues. When later generations researched history, they were surprised to find such a record. It is said that King Hao was possessed by a monster when he was 9 years old. He occupied King Hao's identity for 6 years without being noticed by anyone. However, King Hao loved cats, and the monster did not. He didn't like cats, so he was discovered by Emperor Yuan Chen. It was precisely because of this incident that Emperor Yuan Chen ordered a cat statue to be built in the tomb of King Hao. But this period of history always makes people doubt whether it is true or false. The public is still more inclined to believe that there was a time traveler in that dynasty, but no matter how much verification was done, they could not find out who the time traveler was or where he lived. One time, a farmer reclaimed wasteland and discovered a dungeon underneath. There is a human skeleton in the dungeon that has been dead for a long time. Judging from the chains on the ground, it seems that he was chained until his death. But I don't know what he committed. He is the only one locked up in such a big dungeon. Archaeologists came and found nothing. They could only regard it as the private prison of a powerful person hundreds of years ago. This incident was lightly mentioned in the news. No one paid attention to who died and what he had experienced during his life. Naturally, no one knew. This was the time traveler that many people were looking for. Ji Chang's ran away very quickly this time. He really didn't want to pretend to be the real King Xiao Hao, so he sent the Queen Mother away. Seeing that he was almost old, he passed away peacefully in his sleep. It's still a matter of continuing the mission. This time I opened my eyes and saw a lot of people surrounding me. The first one was an old lady with wrinkles on her face. When she saw that he was awake, a smile of surprise burst out on her face. "Nagaze, you're awake, Grandma is worried, hurry up, come on, bring me the meat quickly, Nagasawa. My darling, you are really suffering from old sins. If you don't want to work, just don't work. Our family doesn't lack the work points. Why do people say that you can stop working if you are injured? Why don't you go to the bottom of the mountain? Jump, but my breasts are so distressed. What are you doing standing there in a daze? Serving meat." She yelled impatiently at a middle-aged woman behind her. The old lady turned around again and looked at Ji Chang's with a gentle and kind look. "Eat this meat well and get well. I will go to the captain in person and tell him if you have to work, I will block the door of his house. I am the biological daughter of his brother who grew up with his third aunt, second uncle, and we have relatives. He has to call me aunt, and I don't believe he dares not to. Listen to me. This relationship is complicated, the old lady is probably not the one who breastfed her. Everyone knows I'm a good man." Author, Tang Zhongmao. Chapter 164. Ji Chang's did not speak, but quietly observed the temperament of the people in the room and their attitude towards him. The old lady who just claimed to be his grandma seemed to be the one holding the most power in the family. She was confident in what she said and looked as happy as a queen. And as her momentum became stronger, the rest of the people naturally became weaker. There were 2 middle-aged men and 2 middle-aged women standing in the room. The 2 men had exactly the same honest expressions. When the old lady scolded them for not looking at their nephews, they could clearly tell the meaning of these words. They didn't dare to say anything even if the blame was thrown away, and they just agreed. Someone even said, "Mom, don't be angry. It's my fault this time. Nagasawa said he wanted to go for a walk in the back mountain, but I didn't think much about it. If I had stopped him, nothing would have happened." Another one also said, "It's not my fault, it's my fault. At that time, Nagasawa said he wanted me to work for him, so I did it without asking. If I had asked, maybe he wouldn't go it's back to the mountain." The 2 wives looked a little helpless, but the old lady was standing there, so they didn't dare to say anything and could only comfort them. This person said, Isn't there nothing serious about Nagasawa? Let's make something delicious to replenish him. The one said, Mom, don't be angry. The meat has been brought. I'm afraid Nagasawa is hungry after sleeping for so long. Let him eat quickly. The old lady didn't listen to anyone and sprayed 4 people on her own. The 4 of you are almost 200 years old together, and you can't even care about a nephew. What else do I want from you? Why, you 4 have been struggling for so long and failed to give birth to our G family. If this little grandson comes, he will kill me, Changs. These words were serious. The 4 of them looked anxious and hurriedly explained, Mom, that's really not the case. The 2 daughters-in-law said nothing but words of comfort, but the words the 2 men said almost choked them to death. The honest Uncle G said, It's too late for us to hurt Nagasawa, so why would we want to harm him? We still expect Nagasawa to support us in our old age. From now on, all the money we earn will be given to Nagasawa. Uncle G saw that the expression on the old lady's face had softened after hearing this, and he quickly nodded, No, Mother, we still count on Nagasawa to support her in her old age. The 2 daughters-in-law listened to what their husbands said and felt deeply hurt. All the property had been given to their nephew, what would they do with their own daughter? They felt uncomfortable in their hearts, but they still had to force a smile on their faces to prevent their mother-in-law from seeing her and getting angry. Ji Changs watched the 5 people finish talking and almost figured out the situation here. The old lady is the eldest in the family. Her 2 sons are honest, and they obey their mother's instructions. He should be the only male in the family now. The old lady wants the whole family to shine and contribute to him alone. The 2 uncles don't opinions, the 2 aunts may have grievances in their hearts, but they dare not challenge the authority of their mother-in-law. Okay, Milk, please stop arguing, I want to take a nap. As soon as Ji Changs interrupted, the old lady who had been so aggressive just now relieved herself of her anger, turned to smile kindly at Ji Changs, and spoke as gently as she wanted. Nagays, you finish eating before you go to bed. Just put the bowl aside after you finish eating. I'll give you milk after you wake up. After saying that, when he turned around to face his 2 sons and daughter-in-law, his face changed again in a second. What are you looking at? Didn't you hear my sweet grandson say he wants to rest? Why don't you go out quickly? What are you doing here? Everyone is so stupid. How come I have a son and daughter-in-law like you? The 4 stupid people hurriedly shrank under the old lady's dangerous sight. Grandma Ji walked at the back. When she closed the door, she smiled at Ji Changs, who was on the bed, and said softly, What's the matter? If you want something to eat, just tell me and I'll get it for you. Don't worry, your eldest brother-in-law's family is rich and she will definitely get it for you. After saying that, he closed the door softly. Then her loud voice came from outside again, You all speak softly. No one is allowed to speak. If it disturbs my grandson's sleep, I will wait for the northwest wind tonight. He was the only one left in the room, and Ji Changs began to check his memory. What he guessed just now was correct. The original owner was indeed the only male in the family, and the 4 people just now were also his uncles and aunts. Today is an era when the country is under construction. The Ji family is just an ordinary old farmer. Grandma Ji and Grandpa Ji gave birth to 3 sons in total. The eldest son is clever and slippery. The second and third sons have been deceived by this elder brother since they were young. He has become an honest person. The father of the original owner was the eldest son. This guy was lazy and didn't want to work in the fields, and he was afraid of what others would say, so he declared that he wanted to study. If he had a literary mind, he could become a cotter and bring happiness to the whole family. So the 2 elders of the Ji family and their 2 younger brothers gritted their teeth to support him. It turned out that this guy was lazy. How could he really study seriously? He said he was going out to study, but in fact all the money was used for him to eat, drink and have fun, and the family gave him a wife. He even hid it from his wife, and if a child was born, he would be the original owner. When the original owner was 1 year old, he was about to graduate. At that time, Grandpa G happened to be sick and needed money, and his family couldn't raise the money, so he lied and said he would give up his studies and go out to earn money to treat his father. His family gave him travel expenses, and the village also issued him a certificate. His original intention was to abandon his family and go out to be happy on his own. The night he left, Grandpa G died. It was such a coincidence that there was a car accident on the road, and the person was sent back with travel expenses. Therefore, although he died young, in the minds of G's family, he was not the heartless liar who deceived the whole family for many years, but a filial son who resolutely gave up his education for his father and had a car accident on the road for his father's sake. Grandma G had always liked her eldest son and regarded him as her pride. After his death, she poured all her affection into her grandson. As a result, when the original owner was 2 years old, his mother went out to work, fell and was hit on the head by a stone, and died. The original owner suddenly became a child without a father and a mother, so Grandma G felt even more sorry for her grandson. Grandma G is thoughtful. She is worried that the other 2 sons in the family will not want to raise this nephew after they have their own sons. Therefore, she has been claiming at home that the original owner's father gave up his studies and died because of this family, and his mother also died because of her husband. It was only after he passed away that he had to work in the fields so late at night. In a word, your nephew's father and mother died for this family, and you have to take responsibility for them. When the second and third sons failed to give birth to sons no matter what, and only had a few daughters, Grandma G's attitude became wary and defensive from the beginning. You must be good to your nephew. His parents left for our family. And later he said confidently, you don't have any sons, and you won't even have anyone to kowtow to your grave when you die. If you don't want to live an uneasy life even after you die, then be nice to my grandchildren. The 2 sons were honest and kind, and they listened to what their mother said. As for the 2 daughters-in-law, although they were unwilling to do so, they were just ordinary rural women. They couldn't give birth to a son, and they themselves felt guilty. In addition, the old lady was so powerful that they really didn't dare to confront her, so they could only acquiesce in frustration. Everything left by the couple will be left to the original owner. The original owner grew up in such an environment where he was supported and pampered. Then, he grew crooked. In the beginning, I was just a bit arrogant and lazy, and I had no respect for the elders in the family. I could only speak nicely to Grandma G, who held the power in the family. To everyone else, he looked carefree. Later, slowly, he began to treat his older sisters as his own cash machines. Regardless of whether they will be looked down upon by others in their husband's family, or how difficult their lives are, they all look to these cousins if they want delicious food or money. It would be fine if he just wanted to eat and drink all the time, but later, he became addicted to gambling. When I got into debt, I went to my sisters to ask for money. If you don't give it, you'll make trouble and cry. This trick worked at first, but later on, when the sisters couldn't afford it and were unwilling to give it, he directly threatened them, saying that if they didn't give the money, the whole family would be in trouble. Later, when they really couldn't come up with the money, he was forced by the debt collectors, so he started to have evil thoughts. The G family are all pretty good looking, especially the girls of the original owner's generation. Even after they get married and have children and get older, they are still pretty. Overnight, the original owner's 2 sisters disappeared. Human traffickers were rampant at that time, but no matter how rampant they would only abduct children and young girls. Who would abduct a married woman and have a child, and she would be a sister of the same family? Some people said that these 4 girls were sold. The seller is naturally the original owner. He took the money from selling the sisters and continued gambling. he was found by Grandma G just as he was kicked out after losing all his money. Grandma G asked him hysterically if he had sold 4 girls. He said yes. Grandma G asked him countless times where he had sold it, and why he could sell his own sisters. The original owner, who was furious at the loss, laughed and said that he not only wanted to sell the 4 sisters, but also their children. He is the male of the family and the whole family is counting on him. What happened to them sacrificing for him? They should die for him. Even if she knew it was him who did it, so what? She was his grandmother, and she still expected him, a man, to take care of her. Could she still report him? The original owner was so confident. Then, that night, he went back to bed without any guilt. Just as he was sleeping soundly, he was stabbed to death by Grandma G. 36 cuts in total. No one knows how Grandma G felt when she personally killed the grandson she had loved for so long. After killing him, she followed suit. In the end, only one of the 4 girls was found, and it was her husband who found her. When she came back, she was already crazy. She was kept in the house in a daze for more than 10 years. In the end, she failed to watch and sneaked out and fell into the river. Inside. The remaining 3 girls were never found again in their lifetimes. In that era, they would probably have just passed away. As for the original owner, he is still addicted to do B0 even after death. He keeps gambling and gambles his soul into it. Ji Chang's rubbed his eyebrows. The current time point is the time period when the original owner is being nudged to do B0, but it is the busy time of farming, and there is no necessary reason not to go to the fields. He came up with the genius idea of break his own leg so that he doesn't have to go to the ground. I thought it was pretty, but ended up falling on my head. In the original timeline, the original owner felt that he had suffered such a serious injury and needed to take good care of himself, so he asked his eldest cousin, second cousin, and third cousin for something, including the meat that Grandma G served just now. Yes, it was just what I wanted before. Ji Chang's began to describe the sisters at home in his heart. 2 from the second uncle's family and 3 from the third uncle's family. The youngest in the third uncle's family are twin sisters. They are still young now. They were sent to other people's homes when they were 5 years old. Now 3 years later, they are already 8 years old. The remaining 3 girls are all sisters. In the original time, the reason why the original owner sold 4 sisters instead of 5 was because one of the twin sisters disappeared when she was a child. When the 2 sisters were sent out, it was the most difficult time for the G family. There were so many people in the family, and the only strong laborers were the second and third uncles of the G family. The rest were either women or children, and the original owner naturally, baby bumps will not be assigned too much tiring work. What to do if there is not enough food at home? Then we can only reduce the number of people eating. There happened to be a family who said they were very interested in daughters and wanted to adopt a daughter. Grandma G went out to find out. The family lived in the town and had a fairly good family background. They had a son but no daughter. They told the public that they liked girls. Well behaved, if you can adopt a daughter, you will definitely treat her like your own daughter, and you will also be willing to pay the girl's original family. Being able to give compensation means that you are sincerely adopting. And there is no shortage of money. The girl at home has passed away and there is no shortage of food and clothing. When she got back, she discussed it with Uncle G's family. Naturally, the 2 of them were reluctant to let go, but what could they do if they didn't want to let go? Would they stay in their own home and be hungry every day? At that time, the original owner heard that there was a reward, and he kept encouraging, so the twin sisters were sent out. The 2 parties agreed that G's family could no longer visit them, lest they have to work hard to raise their children. As a result, the children still recognized their biological parents when they grew up. The G family understands this. Even if Uncle G and Aunt G miss their daughter, they still resisted and didn't look at her. It was really uncomfortable to think about it, so they comforted themselves that they were going to enjoy happiness and go to work in the town. As a result, the village captain went to the city for a meeting and discovered one of the twins among the children begging. This child can be regarded as growing up by himself. In addition, the child has not grown much in the past 3 years due to malnutrition. The captain recognized it at a glance. He quickly called the police and took the child with the help of the police. Go back. The child who was sent away successfully came back with a limp. The G family went to the town to ask for an explanation and found out that the family had just raised twin sisters for a few months when the hostess of the family became pregnant. When she gave birth to her biological daughter, then he saw that this person who was not his biological son was not pleasing to the eye. Send it back, they broke the contract first, and they will definitely not get the reward back. Don't send it back. I feel unhappy raising someone else's child at home. The 2 children spent a period of time as maids in their adoptive parents' home, and were later sold to human traffickers. The people in the city already had some money in their hands, so the 2 girls were sold by traffickers to beggars. They were controlled to beg everywhere. They couldn't get any of the money from begging, and they couldn't fill their stomachs. In order to make people pity them more, the legs should not be healed, and they should be broken when they are healed. The reason why they didn't bother them more was because the 2 sisters were pretty good looking, and the other party expected them to beg for 2 years, wait until they grew older, and then sell them to the mountains to be wives. And just the day before the captain found one of the twins, the sister of the twins had been sold to a passing man. Even the begging group that was caught by the police and imprisoned did not know where the other party came from. Naturally, it is impossible to find the child. The G family is just an ordinary family. Even if Uncle G and Aunt G want to find it, my daughter doesn't have that condition either. The 5 golden flowers of the G family just turned into 4. The lives of the 3 sisters above are not much better. The eldest sister married in the next town and lived well at first. However, as her younger brother asked for money and things more and more frequently, her mother-in-law began to dislike her, and her status in the family gradually declined. The second sister was married in the village. Her parents-in-law were partial, but it was not her and her husband who were partial. Her husband was just like the original owner, and he didn't care how his wife lived at home. He went around to be happy and happy. Anyway, the family was partial to others. It's biased, as long as he can eat enough. The third sister married the best man. He was a small cotter in the city. He was polite and nice to her. Her mother-in-law also liked her. The only shortcoming was that her father-in-law had been poor all his life and wanted his son to marry a well-off family. The girl wanted to improve her family's situation, so she was very dissatisfied with this poor daughter-in-law. What started as a subtle dissatisfaction turned into a huge conflict after the original owner frequently came to his daughter-in-law to ask for money and things. The youngest 5th sister was timid because of her childhood experiences, and everyone in the village knew that she had been abducted and trafficked as a child. She eventually married a mute in the village, and was abducted again just a few days after the marriage. Speaking of which, the original owner was able to come up with such an evil method of abducting his 4 sisters because he had witnessed the tragedy of the 5th sister and the others. It can be said that these girls' lives are tragedies. From birth to marriage, they have always been taught that you must be good to your younger brother, so that your younger brother can support you, and your younger brother must be a filial piety to your parents no matter how hard their lives are, they will work hard to satisfy them. This younger brother, when he was at home, he had to do the hard work for his younger brother. After getting married, her husband's relatives will be dissatisfied because of her younger brother. Later, he was directly abducted and trafficked. How unlucky they must be to have such a nibbling sibling. The 2-bedroom and 3-bedroom family were even more unlucky. They worked hard to support their nephew and relied on him to provide for him in old age. But in the end, This white-eyed wolf didn't care about him, but instead directly abducted and sold their daughter. It's a mess again, but fortunately, the original owner's reputation has been ruined, his deeds have been damaged, and he's looked down upon. The whole village thinks he's worthless. He hasn't had time to do any really bad things. Ji Chang's didn't give in. After mentally calculating what to do next, he finished the broth in one mouthful and put the bowl aside. "Grandmother!" he shouted twice before Grandma Ji trotted over. She looked at Ji Chang's as if she were looking at a poor baby who needed constant care. "What's wrong? Are you feeling unwell?" "No, ma'am, I just want to ask, do I no longer have to go to the ground? My head hurts so much, I really don't want to go." Grandma Ji looked at her grandson with a very distressed look. "You don't have to go. If Grandma said you don't have to go, you don't have to go. Tell me why you are so stupid. You don't want to go to the ground. Grandma can help you tell the captain no. What do you want? Go and torment yourself, the captain is a relative of ours, it's just a matter of not going to the ground, what's so difficult about it?" Ji Chang's nodded with a look of "Why didn't I think of that? Yeah, I didn't think much about it at the time. Then next time, tell the captain directly for me." "Don't worry, Captain, he wants to call me aunt. I can't deal with him yet. Do you still want to eat meat? There are some left here, all given by your eldest sister. I will stew them for you later. Take pity on us. Jia Zhangzi, after suffering so much, you must take good care of yourself. Wait a minute, don't give it to me, milk." Ji Chang's pulled her back with a serious look on his face. "This meat was given to me by my eldest sister. My second uncle and my parents didn't eat it, so I ate it. Will they think too much about it?" Grandma Ji stared. "How dare they? If they hadn't watched you this time, could you have fallen down that mountain? I don't blame them. They still dare to grab meat." Ji Chang's quickly explained, "No, why don't you understand? I don't want to work in the fields anymore. I have to rely on my second and third uncles for work points. Even if the captain is a relative of ours, he won't give me more work points, they can't eat well, who will earn money to support me and the milk? Don't worry, they are very tough. They have resisted beatings since they were young. Your grandfather used to beat them when they were disobedient, but they didn't even cry. No matter how strong I am, I can't stand it if I work too much. Nah, we can't take risks. If my second uncle and three uncles die, the captain will definitely let me work. Nah, I can't bear this hardship. Just promise me, just promise me." Ji Chang's took Grandma Ji's arm and shook it. Grandma Ji couldn't help it and agreed. Okay, I will listen to you and let them eat. If they don't do a good job for me after they finish eating, I will scold them to death." In the yard, Aunt Ji was sighing and choosing vegetables. When she saw her husband coming over, she said, "Mom, that's too much. Nagasawa fell down the mountain on his own intention. Why should I blame you?" Uncle Ji didn't understand why his wife was angry at all, and asked in confusion, "It turns out we didn't keep an eye on Nagaze. Isn't it normal for Mom to be angry? What's wrong with you? Why do you think so?" Aunt Ji: "No, aren't you angry? Even if Nagasawa is a boy, our daughter is not picked up. Back then, the fourth and fifth girls were sent away directly. Now, although the third girl is married, we are her fathers. Mom, you should leave something for her, right? Uncle Ji, the third girl married into a good family. How can she care about things like us? Didn't she bring meat to Nagaze when she went there?" But it was time to get down to business. Aunt Ji said, "That's right. The girl is already married, and the younger brother still asks her for meat. This doesn't make sense." Uncle Ji looked confused. "That girl is already married, why do you still want us to leave something for her?" Aunt Ji: I mean, we don't have a son and we have to raise a nephew, so I won't say anything. But the girls are all married, so we don't have to raise this younger brother anymore. Look at the big girl, the days are also changing. It's not that easy. Last time, Nagasawa asked for meat. What was the reason? It was given to the second brother and the second sister-in-law. Look, did the second brother and the second sister-in-law take a bite of the meat? Sister-in-law, I haven't eaten a bite myself. When has the food Nagasawa asked for entered anyone else's mouth, even a bite? As soon as she said this, Grandma Ji stood on the steps and shouted, "From the third family, hurry up and clean up the kitchen and cook the meat that the eldest girl gave you. Let's try it together tonight." Aunt Ji. What's going on? The sun is coming out in the west. Everyone knows I'm a good man. Author, Tang Zhongmao. Chapter 165. Ji Chang stood on the steps and stretched, watching Aunt Ji working in the kitchen while taking the time to look back at him, her eyes filled with disbelief and disbelief. He wasn't surprised. If the second Aunt Ji at home is the kind of person who is honest and doesn't dare to complain even though she is suffering a lot and cannot accept it, then the third Aunt Ji is a little more lively and dares to do some tricks. But she definitely wouldn't dare to do anything bad, otherwise she wouldn't have allowed the original owner to be arrogant for so long. It would take some time to prepare the meal. After stretching, he walked towards the door openly. Aunt Ji's neck almost stretched like a giraffe. When he went out, she could only retract it unwillingly. It was a coincidence that as soon as Ji Chang stood at the door, he happened to be facing the friend who walked over and encouraged the original owner to go out and play a little bit. This person's name is Wang Daqiang. He has a pretty ordinary name. He is also pretty ordinary looking. He is about the same age as Ji Chang's. When he walks, he may be trying to lean towards the mighty side of a tiger. Unfortunately, he doesn't act like a tiger but more like a tiger. The leg was injured. "Nagaze, I happened to meet you, how was it? Did you get the money?" Wang Daqiang leaned over very familiarly, put his hand on Ji Chang's shoulder, and started talking to himself. "You are so brave, I asked you to think of a way to avoid working, but you actually jumped down from the mountain, but yes, you are the bravest one in this whole village. Is your grandma feeling very distressed? People who have been here tell you that this is the best time to ask for money. Not to mention the fact that you have a lot of money, it is very easy." Ji Chang's listened silently to what he said, with a smile on his face. "Brother Chiang, what about you? You said you wanted to take me to the city, so how much money have you prepared? It should be easier for you to ask for money than for me." Bar. Wang Daqiang's expression froze and he didn't know how to answer the question. This man was full of bad intentions, but there was a reason why he singled out Ji Chang's. He and Ji Chang's were born in the same year. Their parents and grandfathers both died young, and they were both raised by their parents and grandfathers. What's more similar is Wang Daqiang's eldest uncle, second uncle, and third uncle, who also gave birth to a bunch of golden flowers but no sons. It's just that unlike Ji Chang's, people who don't have a son treat Ji Chang's nephew as a treasure. When he comes to the Wang family, if he can't give birth to a son, Wang Daqiang's three uncles won't give him any advantage. They are not fools. What kind of thing is Wang Daqiang? How can they still not know who they have grown up with? The grandma of the Wang family has a good temper. It is impossible for her to be like Grandma Ji, who has to force her two sons and two daughters-in-law to help raise her nephew. The three uncles of the Wang family really take Wang Daqiang seriously. Even if he did give him money, he might not get anything in return in the future. If you really have money in hand, you might as well leave it to your own biological daughter. After all, she is your own flesh and blood, so she can help you more or less. Besides, they are not very old, they are not yet 50, so there is no telling when they will have another child. Yang Wang Daqiang is such an unlucky person? Come on, if you expect him to come back, you might as well adopt a baby. Therefore, Wang Daqiang wanted to be a young master for nothing, but his three uncles were not easy to fool, and no one would tolerate him. If this is the case, Wang Daqiang will gradually accept his fate. But there is also Ji Chang's in the village. Ji Chang's and his two uncles were real fools. They were actually willing to help their brothers raise their children, even though they spent more effort than raising their own children. The two of them were obviously in exactly the same situation, but the treatment they encountered was completely different. It's natural that Ji Chang's doesn't work. If Wang Daqiang doesn't work, he is lazy. Ji Chang's showed off his fine skin and tender flesh every day without hiding. He was praised for his handsomeness by the Ji family, and he felt comfortable just looking at it. Wang Daqiang avoids going to the ground, so he takes the opportunity to be lazy and deserves a lesson. When Ji Chang's wanted to eat, he howled a few times and his sisters rushed to bring him food. Even if Wang Daqiang wants to eat whatever he wants, his cousins won't bother him. If they get into trouble, they might even file a complaint to his uncle. Wang Daqiang quit. Why? Same situation, same age, same sister, but I am a boy. How come Ji Chang's, who is popular and supported by his family, can't get such treatment? Of course, at first, his resentment was directed at his three uncles. After measuring their strong muscles and tall bodies, he immediately withdrew his resentment. I just don't like this kid Ji Chang's. Of course I don't like him because he is easy to bully. It's because he is too arrogant. Let's really get started. Wang Daqiang still doesn't dare. He happens to be a gangster who mixes the left and the right. He has heard that so-and-so gambled, lost his whole family, and owed a large amount of debt. After thinking about it, he came to Ji Chang's to get close to him and wanted to lure him into gambling. The original owner was also a person who couldn't resist temptation. When he heard this, he immediately said that he could find a way to stop working and then go out with him with the money. But, now it's Ji Chang's. Brother Chiang, tell me, how much money did your family give you? Show me how much I know. Wang Daqiang doesn't have any money in his hands. Even if his grandma dotes on him, he wanders here and there every day. It's strange that he can keep any money. Ji Chang's eyes suddenly turned suspicious when he looked at him. Brother Chiang, didn't you say you would take me to play? You can't just bring your own money, right? Even if you don't bring any money, you can just bring some food stamps. If you don't bring anything, just let me bring the money. Wang Daqiang. That's what he meant. But of course he couldn't say that on his face. Wang Daqiang smiled dryly. No way, I just want to see if you are ready. I keep all my money at home. Oh. Ji Chang's nodded with sudden realization. The money is at home, so go get it. We will leave after you take the money. Wang Daqiang's smile became even stiffer. Where is he going to get money? Nagays, how much did you ask for your milk? Is it enough for fun? If you don't bring enough money, we won't go. Ji Chang's made a gesture, 5 yuan, and a few food stamps. Is that enough, Brother Chiang? Wang Daqiang's eyes almost popped out of his head. 5 yuan. I had known that the Ji family favored Ji Chang's before, but I didn't expect that he would be so favored. When he asked for money, he would actually ask for so much. If you give him these $5, it will be enough for him to live happily for a long time. Wang Daqiang now regrets the idea of taking Ji Chang's to the gambling house. It would be better to give him an advantage than others. It would be great if the money could be in his hands. He had learned several tricks to cheat people. Although he couldn't fool people who often played tricks, couldn't Ji Chang's, a person who had never gambled before, still be fooled? After he had this idea, he couldn't suppress it anymore. He swallowed, smiled a little more sincerely, and said to Ji Chang's, Changs, why don't we go to the town to play? It takes a lot of effort to come back, so it's better for us brothers to play alone. We are from the same village and can play whenever we want, don't you think? Ji Changs nodded with a smile and looked easy to talk to. Okay, brother Chiang, then I'll listen to you. We two brothers can play alone. This Ji Changs has really never seen the world, but he is easy to fool. And after making money, if Ji Changs regrets and wants his money back, he can refuse to admit it and pretend it didn't happen. After all, he used to look down on Ji Changs and never interacted with him. In the eyes of the villagers, they had no friendship. Every time he went to Ji Changs, he would always choose a time when no one was around. When Ji Changs, a person who had never had any friendship with him, suddenly slandered him for winning by gambling, he could stand innocently. Come out and express. What? I'm not familiar with Ji Changs. What's the money? I don't know, I've never seen it, I've never heard of it. Wang Deqiang almost laughed out loud when he thought that he would soon have an income of 5 yuan, and that Ji Changs would be tricked to the point of vomiting blood. Ji Changs, but brother Chiang, do you have 5 yuan? If you don't have any money, I won't play with you. Yes, I left it at home. I'll go back and get it now. The fat sheep he got can't run away, right? Wang Deqiang hurriedly agreed, and while walking back, he didn't forget to say to Ji Changs, just wait, I will come to you soon with the money. When the time comes, let's have a good time. Ji Changs stood smiling and watched him walk away. As soon as the people left, he rested where he was for almost 10 minutes before walking towards another road. Wang Deqiang definitely has no money on hand. But if he wants to earn Ji Chang's money, he must also have capital. It's easy to figure out where the money will come from. It was not time to work now. The men were all resting under the tree in 2s and 3s. Ji Chang saw Wang Deqiang and his 3 uncles sitting together and chatting at a glance. Uncle, I just saw someone climbing up and entering your courtyard. My injury is not healed yet, so I don't dare to go there. I'm afraid I won't be able to defeat the thief. Please go back and have a look. The 3 people stood up immediately after hearing this. Did you really see it? I really saw it. When I passed by, I happened to see the person climb in. I don't know if it was 1 person or 2 people. His grandma dared to steal it from us. The 3 of them directly picked up their hoes and angrily headed towards their homes. When the other people who were resting on the side heard that there was a thief in the village, they all followed behind to watch the excitement. It's strange that thieves can still visit this poor place. The 3 of them quickly arrived at the entrance of the courtyard. Yes, the 3 of them live in the same courtyard. Grandma Wang and Wang Deqiang live next door. All 3 of them are willing to take care of the old man, but no one is willing to take care of their nephew. So they separate and live in their own way. The old man's share is given to him. Ji Changs followed behind and watched the 3 of them open the Suzero and enter the door. Wang Deqiang, who had dug in secretly, had just found the money when he and the money were directly exposed under the noses of his 3 uncles. Uncle, second uncle, and third uncle, please listen to my explanation. I don't want to steal this money from you. I want to borrow it and use it. After I use it, I will return it to you. Just 1 afternoon. I promise to return it to you in 1 afternoon. Really? Oh, uncle, don't fight, I know it's wrong. After a while, Wang Deqiang was kicked out crying for his father. His 3 uncles were not that good-tempered, and they were not soft-handed. The pain was so painful that he was shaking when he walked. Are you borrowing money? You borrowed money from us, and we only gave it to you after we agreed. You are stealing. How did you raise a guy like you? You steal your own family's money and pay it back. If Ji Changs hadn't seen someone come in, would you have killed me? The beaten Wang Deqiang accurately captured the words Ji Changs. Ji Changs snitched. He looked at Ji Chang's, who was standing in the crowd watching the excitement with shock and anger. Ji Chang's. You actually betrayed me. Ji Chang's face was also full of confusion. Brother Chiang, what did you say? Why did I betray you? You knew I was going home to get money, but you deliberately told my uncle and the others. How could I possibly know that you want to steal money? No one in the village knows that we didn't interact at all before. As Ji Chang spoke, his face slowly showed anger. It's obviously you who stole the money, and you blame me. If I knew it was you, I wouldn't go to Uncle Wang and the others. You are all one family, man. It's none of my business for you to enter the yard. What he said is true. Anyway, others believed it. Who doesn't know that these two young men in their village who behaved like bastards didn't interact with each other before, and they haven't had any friendship since childhood. Now it seems that Wang Deqiang was caught in the act, and he couldn't get over it, so he started to grab people into the water randomly. Wang Deqiang was simply stunned. This was just like what he had expected before, confusing right and wrong, completely obliterating every step without missing a beat. But the question is, shouldn't he be the one who confuses right and wrong and pretends to be stupid? He could only watch Ji Chang's babbling. Forget it, you are just jumping over the wall in a hurry. I won't argue with you, but it's not me who said, Wang Deqiang, everyone in the village knows what you are doing. I, Ji Chang's, am the worst person. People say I am incompetent, but no matter how incompetent I am not stealing from others, let alone stealing from my own family. Tisk tisk tisk. Wang Deqiang immediately felt something stuck in his heart. You, Ji Chang's, are the darling of the entire Ji family, so of course you don't need to steal if you want money. He wanted to refute, but unfortunately Ji Chang's didn't give him this chance at all. You didn't steal from so many people in the village, so why did you steal from your uncle's house? Oh, I understand. You just relied on them being your uncles. Even if they found out that the money was short, they wouldn't be able to do anything to you and beat you up. I can't send you to the police station. I didn't expect you to be such an insidious person. Wang Deqiang. Gab. It's all nonsense. But it was useless to argue. The three uncles standing behind him were already looking at him with sinister eyes. Ji Chang's, please don't put me and Wang Deqiang together in the future. He and I are different. No matter how much of a bastard I am, I will never be sneaky. Look at me, I'm still doing a good job today. Otherwise, I'm afraid they'll lose me. I don't know who stole the money. It's rare these days for someone to boast so confidently. When Ji Chang's praised himself like this, someone next to him was actually let in and praised, you are doing the right thing. It is not easy for every household to earn money and food now. If Wang Deqiang really steals this, it's going to be a hard time. Hey, you really don't need to praise me. We are from the same village. How can I still pretend that I didn't see it? Even if it were not Uncle Wang's family, if it were any other family in the village, if I saw a thief in your house, I would definitely not just I don't care. Ji Chang's himself has a good appearance, and now he stands upright and speaks such words, which is really trustworthy. Especially since he had just done a good deed, the eyes of everyone looking at him suddenly became much kinder. Wang Deqiang simply watched Ji Chang step on him to gain a good reputation, and his face was livid with anger. You all let him deceive you. He tricked me into going home to get money, saying he wanted to gamble with me. Ji Chang's touched his injured head and sneered, Wang Laokai, did I lose my brain or did you lose your brain? How come your brain is damaged? I bet with you. Gambling is only done by people without conscience. Who is from the next village, the Zhao family? Isn't it because of gambling? A good family has been tortured so much that they can't eat. I'm crazy and I'm gambling. You don't understand. By the way, why did you use gambling money to get me? You don't want to gamble money anymore, do you? You actually went to gamble. Didn't the captain say that $0 is not allowed in the village? You actually openly defied the captain. This exaggerated, surprised, and somewhat shocked tone successfully focused everyone's attention on Wang Deqiang. No wonder he always runs to town. It turns out he is gambling. I just said that last time I heard his aunt say that he spent money ruthlessly even if he didn't work. At that time, he thought that he would eat and live in the village and spend the money wherever he could. Instead, he threw it all into the big hole of gambling. What a sin the Wang family has done. It's just a single seedling, and it's so stupid. Ji Chang's also shook his head, with a look of hatred on his face. It's evil, it's evil. Such a young man, what can he do? It's all about the family's money. Wang Deqiang. How can this guy be so good at acting? Ji Chang's finished dumping the blame, patted his butt and left. Okay, I'm still waiting for dinner at home, you can do it yourself, I don't care. Anyway, you don't care about gambling, so you don't care about my business. Wang Deqiang, don't leave, please speak clearly. Ji Chang's, did you hear that, Ji Chang's? Please answer me, hey. Uncle, I was wrong, don't fight, don't fight. After leaving a pile of chicken feathers for Wang Deqiang, Ji Chang strolled home. After everything was ready, Uncle Ji and Uncle Ji sat down at the table in a daze, wondering why they still had their share of the meat. Second Aunt Ji was also a little flattered. While she was busy in the kitchen, she even sighed to Third Aunt Ji, this kid Nagasawa is really sensible. He is actually willing to share the meat with us. Aunt Ji. Second sister-in-law, please make it clear that the meat was given by the eldest girl. You and the second brother are the eldest girl's biological parents. He should have given it to you long ago. Hey, we are all old bones, why should we eat meat? Nagasawa was just injured and needs to recuperate. Aunt Ji. I've never seen him give up before when he didn't need to replenish his body. She still felt that something was wrong. Ji Chang's had always been a master who only got in and out, but he was suddenly so attentive. Who would believe that he was not a ghost? She carefully pulled Aunt Ji over. Second sister-in-law, don't you think there's anything wrong? With Nagasawa's temper, how could he give up the meat? Aunt Ji, so he is sensible. Children are like this when they grow up. Come on, that doesn't make sense. Anyway, in this family, she is the only one with a bright mind, so she should be more vigilant. So when Ji Chang's came back, he was faced with the wary eyes of his second aunt. He sat down calmly, and while eating, he vividly told the Ji family about Wang Deqiang's behavior just now. Of course, he didn't say that Wang Deqiang had a $0 history before, but if the Ji family thought so, there was nothing he could do. Grandma Ji slapped the table. What a Wang Deqiang. He stole money for himself, and he wants to throw dirty water on you. Nagaze, just wait. When the meal is over, Grandma will go to his door to scold him. If he doesn't scold him for an hour, my wife will take his surname. No, I see that he was beaten quite badly. He is probably dizzy now. Ji Chang's was still like the original owner, eating like he was grabbing for things, putting delicious meat and vegetables into his own bowl, and eating like crazy. After he finished, he put down the bowl and began to criticize Wang Deqiang righteously. In my opinion, this Wang Deqiang is not clear-headed. Is it possible to be contaminated? Who doesn't know that once he is exposed, he will never come out again? My family is ruined and my family is ruined. Anyway, I don't like him. I used to think that we were quite similar, but now it seems that he has no moral integrity. I don't want to be seen working, and I'm not happy to do it, but I won't harm my family, my second uncle, my second aunt, my third uncle, my third aunt, and my mother. You guys are so good to me, and you have worked hard to raise me. If I gamble with my family's money, am I still a human being? Even if it's for you, I can't gamble. Then Wang Daqiang is a heartless person, even if he really wins the gamble. I will definitely not let his uncles take advantage. I am different. If I make money, uncles, aunts, and sisters, I will definitely repay you. Second uncle, do you still want to eat this piece of meat? I've been putting it in the bowl for a long time and I haven't seen you move. If you don't want to eat it, I'll eat it. Second Uncle Ji was so moved just now. After hearing this, he hurriedly took the meat in his bowl and said, Uncle Second doesn't want to eat it, so you eat it. Ji Changs immediately thanked him, thank you, second uncle. From now on, I will make money and buy you meat every day. If a good person says good things to you, it is a normal thing for others. But when a person who used to be extremely bad suddenly turns around, this is simply a good thing worthy of setting off firecrackers to celebrate. Plus, people are afraid of comparison. With the negative comparison of Wang Daqiang, and the hard work he had just done to exaggerate how much of a bastard Wang Daqiang was, Ji Changs really didn't seem to have any shortcomings, except that he was just lazy, greedy, and had a bad temper and didn't like to work. Grandma Ji was so happy that there were a few more wrinkles on her face. Grandma, you know that our parent Zhang Ziyi is a sensible person. Come and eat more vegetables. Oh, Grandma is really happy. Aunt Ji. No, why are you so moved and happy? Isn't that just not do B0? Isn't that what normal people should do? She twitched the corners of her mouth and looked at Aunt Ji aside, second sister-in-law. Second Aunt Ji also had a look of joy on her face, her eyes were even a little red, she wiped the corners of her eyes gently, and sighed to third Aunt Ji, look at this child, how sensible he is. Fortunately, we didn't have a nephew like Wang Daqiang, otherwise it would be so, it's a life of unrest. Aunt Ji. Am I crazy, or is the world crazy? There are 6 paragraphs in this chapter, you are reading, paragraph 7. There are 6 paragraphs in this chapter, you are reading, paragraph 8. This chapter has 6 paragraphs in total, you are reading, paragraph 9, comma. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Everyone knows I'm a good man. Author, Tang Zhonmao. Chapter 166. No matter how confused Aunt Ji was, the family seemed to be having a good time. After eating and taking a rest, it was time to go to work in the fields. Ji Changs definitely didn't need to go because he had a head injury. After the house was cleaned up, he was the only one left. He just went out and planned to think about what to do. For hunting, although there are mountains in the village here, there are really not many good things on the mountains. There are no big birds of prey here, and people are not afraid of going up the mountains. Before, when they had nothing to eat or drink, a large number of people went up the mountains to hunt. After so long, the animals on the mountains have become there was only a little bit left, and he ran away when he saw anyone. It's still hard to catch. When it comes to doing business, now is not the most suitable time. The timeline of this world is very fluctuating, but time management is not as strict as when Ji Changs was there before. Although everyone still works together and goes to the fields together, everyone eats their own meals. It's not like the town doesn't allow people to buy and sell things privately. So it is very simple to get rich, it just depends on which path you want to take. Ji Changs went out for a stroll and reached the river. He happened to see a few children in the village splashing in the water. The adults working in the fields nearby would straighten up and take a look from time to time, fearing that they would go deeper. There is nothing good in the mountains here. The water is quite deep. Many people in the village know the nature of water. However, there is a large reservoir in the village where the water is too deep. The adults do not let the children play there since they were young. I heard that there is water underneath. There are many aquatic plants that are dangerous for feet, and adults themselves are unwilling to go there. Ji Chang's had an idea and spent some effort walking to the reservoir. In the field, the Ji family was working. A villager followed by 2 children came. Ji Lao, what are you doing at the reservoir? The sun is shining brightly. Uncle Ji was stunned when he heard this. Has Nagasawa gone to the reservoir? No, I saw it with my own eyes. The only direction he walked was the reservoir. He was not going there, but somewhere else. I don't know either. Today I told you to let Nagasawa rest in the house. Why did this child run to the reservoir? Uncle Ji was busy working, but he didn't care much about his nephew. After all, Nagasawa was so old, and he was not the kind of child who had to be watched. He might just want to swim in the reservoir, as long as he didn't swim in the deep water area. Just swim if you like. Third Aunt Ji, who was also working over there, heard this and quickly pulled Aunt Ji along and said, Second sister-in-law, look at Nagasawa, we are working so hard here, but he is doing well and went to play in the water. Not a kid anymore. Aunt Ji was pulled a little, and she raised her head in confusion. Why are you playing with water? Nagasawa has a wound on his head. He probably has something wrong with him. What can happen? The young man won't do this or that. It's not okay to always be like this. Before Aunt Ji could finish her words, Aunt Ji had already continued working with her head down without any concern. Aunt Ji was extremely angry. Working angrily, she took advantage of her break to run to where her parents' house was. Her mother was old, but she still came to work in the fields. As soon as the mother and daughter met, Aunt Ji started to complain, my second brother and sister-in-law, and the one in my family, they are just stupid. It was the same. It was obvious that this nephew was unreliable, but they still believed in him and provided him with good food and drink. They gave him all the delicious food at home first. Just now, this kid actually went to play in the reservoir, and no one else did. Something feels wrong. Aunt Ji-san and her mother were also filled with righteous indignation after hearing this. I'm telling you, you shouldn't have sent away the 4th and 5th girls in the first place. At least one of them should be left behind to recruit a son-in-law for you. That nephew of yours is right. You are unreliable. What should you do when you are old? No. After holding it in for a day, she finally found someone who spoke the same language as her. Aunt Ji was so excited. Mom, tell me, what do they think? If Ji Chang's doesn't work, they will say that the child is still young, no matter how old he is. More than 20 years old, at my age, 3 girls have been born. He doesn't go to the ground, but my mother-in-law still spoils him. You said that there are so many people in our team, none of them must go to the ground. Why doesn't he go to the ground and earn money? If the work is divided, doesn't it mean that we keep him in vain? Otherwise, mother will ask your brother to talk to the captain, so that the captain must ask him to work. We will go quietly without letting your mother-in-law know. Your mother-in-law doesn't know. Even if she wants to complain, it will be a big complaint. Captain, I can't blame you. Aunt Ji's mother came up with such an idea. Aunt Ji-san thought about it and felt that it seemed feasible. It's not that she covets the little work points, she just doesn't like this model where the whole family works actively, and Ji Chang's is lazy and unmotivated and has to rely on the whole family to support him and is praised as his beloved. How can you have the nerve to let your uncle, aunt, and grandma take care of such a grown-up person? It's so shameless. A smile appeared on her face, and she pulled her mother's arm affectionately. Mom, if you are still kind to me, then I will wait at home. The mother and daughter agreed and continued to work in their respective places. Aunt Ji was very happy to see her coming back from a trip, so she asked. Nothing, I just talked to my mother. Third Aunt Ji was happy, but she was not stupid. Naturally, she could not reveal what she had discussed with her mother. She just made a few perfunctory remarks. Second, Aunt G did not inquire into the details and continued to work hard. To say that Aunt G-san is holding back her bad feelings is not true. She is a typical rural woman. She cannot give birth to a son. She feels that she has no confidence in raising her nephew. Her mother-in-law is suppressing her and she does not dare to speak. But the whole family was immersed in work, and they only provided for a nephew like Ji Chang's who didn't work at all, and she felt uncomfortable. I can feed you, but why don't you just open your mouth and wait for food? Don't work so hard here, you will enjoy it there. Before her daughter got married, she still knew how to work at such an old age. And Aunt G usually thinks a little more. As for what her mother-in-law said, the G family depends on Nagasawa. With Nagasawa as a younger brother, you girls can have confidence, let the girls communicate more with Nagasawa and so on. Aunt G's heart is full of thoughts. Don't believe it? Having a younger brother does not necessarily mean you are confident, so having a younger brother who is capable and dare not let your sister-in-law and family look down upon you is capable. What kind of confidence could Ji Chang's like this bring to his sisters? But it was useless for her to think clearly. Her mother-in-law, husband and even her sister-in-law all thought that Ji Chang's was the hope of the family. She is in this family, and there is no outside help at all. Aunt Ji could only feel sad and angry, but she dared not say anything. But thinking that her nephew would have to work in the future, she felt much more comfortable. When the work was done, she walked briskly and went home with her family. As soon as the door opened, there was a basin of fish in the yard, big and small, jumping happily around in the wash basin. The whole Ji family was shocked by the scene before them. Grandma Ji walked at the end, but her reaction was the quickest. She closed the door with a bang, and her voice suddenly dropped 800 degrees. She looked at Ji Chang's who was drying his clothes and asked quickly, "Where did these fish come from?" "It was caught in the reservoir." Ji Chang's shook the water on his head and smiled at Grandma Ji. "Grandma, let's eat fish today." Grandma Ji still couldn't believe it. Didn't the reservoir be completely captured a few years ago? How could you capture so many? It's still so big. As you said, that was all a few years ago. No one has been to the reservoir for a long time. The weeds are growing everywhere. It took me a while to get to the shore. It took me a long time to get there. No one has gone there. Who knows there are fish there? Ji Chang's showed a mysterious look on his face and waved to the confused Ji family to come forward. When they arrived in front of him, he whispered, "When I passed by, I found that there was a large school of fish. The fish hadn't seen anyone for a long time, so I made a basket on the spot, caught some earthworms and threw them in, and the fish came right in, without any effort. But the road was really difficult. I was afraid that the fish would be dead and stale. I went home several times to get buckets and transport them back. I was afraid that others would see it, so I took the mountain road specially." You brought it back?" Aunt Ji-san stammered, incredulously, "Nagaze, don't you usually like to move?" "I don't like to move because there is no reward even if I move. This fish is ready-made meat and can be taken to the city to exchange for money. If I still don't move, I will become a fool like Wang Daqiang." There seems to be nothing wrong with this logic, but why does it sound so strange to my heart? Aunt Ji was still thinking about it, but Grandma Ji raised her lips and said happily, "My grandson is very capable. He can catch so many fish in a reservoir, which is enough for us to eat for many days. Not only is it enough to eat, but it's also enough to sell. Milk, when I get these fish and sell them, I can make enough money to buy fabric for you and make new clothes." As soon as these words came out, Grandma Ji was coaxed to become even happier. Ji Chang's was still doing the distribution in a matter-of-fact manner. "I just counted, there are 5 big fish in total, more than 30 medium-sized fish, and there are so many small fish that I can't even count them. There are 3 big fish, 1 sister and 1 person one, the biggest one is given to the eldest sister." She gave us the meat before, and we sell the rest of the fish except for our own food. Grandma Ji looked stunned and a little reluctant. Your three sisters are all married well, and they are not short of food and drink. There is no need to give this fish. The uncles and aunts of the Ji family also looked at Ji Chang's in surprise. According to this little ancestor's temper, it would be good if he didn't keep these fish to eat, but he could actually take some out and share them with his three sisters. Isn't it raining red from the sky? Why don't you give it to me? Listen to what the people in the village say, saying that I have no ability. Just rely on my three sisters. I will let them take a good look at whether I have the ability, so that they don't always take it. Wang Daqiang comes to compete with me. He, Wang Daqiang, can't keep up with me even if he tries to flatter me. Is he worthy of him? As soon as Ji Chang said these words, the Ji family understood. Daking is still about Wang Daqiang. Before, they just listened to Ji Chang's alone and said that the feelings were not that deep. It was only when they listened to others chatting during breaks while working that they realized that Wang Daqiang was talking about having noses and eyes when he was grabbing people. If Ji Chang's and Wang Daqiang hadn't kept close contact with each other, others might have believed them. Seeing this, Nagasawa hated Wang Daqiang. The Ji family is not very confused. Their little ancestor is very grudge-bearing. He will bear all the grudges of his family members, let alone outsiders. No matter what, the second and third bedrooms are still very happy with the result. How could they not feel pain in their hearts for their own daughter, but they didn't dare to say it out and send their daughter away, but Grandma Yuki's beloved Nagasawa said it was different in person. Ji Chang's insisted. Although Grandma Ji didn't think it was necessary, she still couldn't resist her grandson. She gritted her teeth and nodded in agreement. Give it away, give it away. When you do it, you must tell them that this is the fish caught by Nagaze, and it is also Nagaze's heartache day. The parents were so happy that their daughter could eat fish that they didn't care about anything else, so they quickly nodded and agreed. Ji Chang's, by the way, I found that the fish in the reservoir are really big, just in the thick concave area. When you talk about it, just say that I caught the fish in the reservoir, but don't say where it is, otherwise it will when everyone in the village has gone, we can't catch him at home. Aunt Ji-san is indeed the shrewdest person in the family. She immediately slapped the table and said, not only can't you tell them that it's Hoeo, but you can't tell them that it's in the reservoir. Otherwise, Hoeo is behind the reservoir. Anyone who is interested can know where it is by walking around. Now, I still can't hide it. Whose family was it? Yes, it was the Chen family. When the trees were cut down on the mountain, weren't there a lot of wild rabbits that jumped into his house? Some people in the village were really kind. Shame, the noisy mountain belongs to the big guys, and the wild rabbits on it also belong to the big guys. We must let the Chen family take out the wild rabbits they work so hard to catch and share them together. What if those people know that the fish in Nagasawa are obtained from the reservoir and they clamor to share the fish? When the Chen family incident broke out, Aunt Ji was too shy to make a fuss, but what she was actually thinking about was how nice it would be if this wild rabbit could be shared with everyone. Although there are definitely fewer people getting it, who would dislike this if they get it for free? But distinguishing people's things is the same thing. It's not okay to share your own things. She doesn't have any selfless dedication. Of course, if there is a benefit, it can only be kept by her own family. Besides, although this reservoir belongs to the village, it was not built by the whole village. It is just that the terrain is special and it will turn into something year after year. Reservoir. Because there is a lot of water, the village would divert water from it during droughts, so it was named the reservoir. To put it bluntly, isn't it just a wild place? Ji Chang's nodded, as if he agreed with Third Aunt Ji's words, but Third Aunt, if we don't talk about the reservoir, others will definitely ask when they see our fish. What will they say then? Aunt Ji thought for a while. So, Don't we have a cart at home? Wait until dawn tomorrow and let your third uncle put the fish on the cart and drag the cart into the city to sell it. When he comes back, he will say these fish were bought from the city. By then we will have money and a source of fish, and we won't be afraid of what the villagers will say. Ji Chang's immediately smiled. Third aunt, you are really smart. You are much smarter than my third uncle. If you had studied at first, you might have been admitted to college now. Aunt Ji's face immediately showed a smile when she was praised. She was a little embarrassed and a little proud. Really? I also wanted to study at that time, but it was a pity that someone had to work at home, so I couldn't go. Hey. That's such a pity. Third aunt, you are so smart even if you haven't studied. It would be fine if you had studied. I trust third aunt on this matter. Then tomorrow, third uncle and I will go to the city together. I just want to give something to the third sister and the eldest sister. Ji Chang's rainbow fart is not rich in language content, but it is precious because Ji Chang's expression is particularly sincere and his tone of voice is particularly admiring, which contains full appreciation for Aunt Ji. Aunt Ji-san has always felt that she is the smartest one in the family. Specifically, when the whole family pampered and doted on Ji Chang's, she was the only one who could stay awake and see clearly how ineffective her nephew was in this so-called Ji family's only child. But now, Ji Chang's affirmed her intelligence. Aunt Ji-san suddenly felt light and airy all over. Not to mention, although this kid Nagasawa is usually a bit lazy, he still has a pretty good eye for seeing people. Ji Chang's was still there and said, Third aunt, let's see what we do next. There are so many fish, it would be a pity to just let them go, but I can't go into the water even if I have an injury on my head. Aunt Ji-san also felt it was a pity. In this way, if this fish really can't escape there, you can secretly buy a net when you go to the city tomorrow. I can also swim. When the net arrives, I will find an excuse to help you. Let's get the fish back, and then sell it quietly the next morning before dawn while everyone is asleep. She said while trying to improve, you can't let the third brother go every day. The second brother and the third brother come alternately, so that even if you come back late, the people in the village will not find that one person always comes back late. After finishing speaking, Aunt Ji proudly stood up and waited for everyone to praise her. When she looked up, the rest of the Ji family looked at her with expressions of what are you talking about? Why can't I understand? The anger was relieved immediately. Hey, it's not good to be too smart. You don't think on the same line as others. Only Ji Chang's applauded approvingly, with admiration written all over his face. Third aunt, you are so strong and awesome, why didn't I think of it? Okay. We will do as you say. In an instant, Aunt Ji's heart was filled with confidence. Even the way he looked at Ji Chang's was quite affectionate. Can you not be affectionate? This is the only person in the whole family who understands her. Early the next morning, Ji Chang's and Uncle Ji set out. When he arrived in the city, Ji Chang's wandered around and found a place where fish was sold. After asking Uncle Ji to sell it here, he took the fish and went to the third sister's house. When he knocked on the door, he saw an old man with a serious expression, who looked like an old-fashioned old man at first glance. When he saw it was Ji Chang's, the expression on his face immediately changed. Uncle, is my sister at home? Ji Chang's immediately laughed when he recognized that this man was his eldest sister's father-in-law. Although the little old man was not very satisfied with his daughter-in-law's biological brother, he could not keep a straight face because he greeted her with a smile. He could only say dryly, I'm going to work. I'm so busy every day that I can't make much money. Knowing that he was preventing him from borrowing money, Ji Chang's didn't mind. After all, the original owner had come to borrow money several times before. People originally looked down on their daughter-in-law for having such a poor relative. Every time the original owner came to the door, he always came back with nothing. Go ahead and give him a smile. What a coincidence. I have something else to do, so I won't go in. I caught this fish. I thought it would be difficult for you to buy fish in the city, so I brought it to you. Uncle, please take it. The little old man was stunned. Why, this time I came in empty-handed, why did I still carry the fish this time? It is indeed difficult to buy fish in the city. After all, there are reservoirs, rivers, etc. in the countryside. In the city, there are only houses. Fish are not as easy to feed as poultry. It takes time to transport them and requires water, not to mention the effort. Not many come around, so it has always been a rarity. His expression softened a lot, and he said, "How can I be so embarrassed? How can I ask you to give me something? Nothing, nothing. My sister helped me a lot before. As a younger brother, I remember it in my heart. Wasn't this because I had no conditions before? Now when I catch fish, I have to give it to my sister, my brother-in-law, and you, the two elders." Ji Chang said this beautifully, and the little old man also had a smile on his face. Seeing this, Ji Chang's didn't say a few words, just stuffed the fish into his hand, turned around and left. The more he didn't try to say thank you, the more the little old man liked him. Could it be that I really misunderstood this kid before? Looking at this honest person who repays his kindness, why did he always think that this guy was a shameless guy who only knew how to take advantage? When Ji Chang's and the others went back, it was too late. The fish for the eldest sister could only be saved for the next day. In the village, Aunt Ji found a good reason for not going to work. "My nephew has a headache and needs help at home." When Aunt Ji San's mother heard that the Ji family actually refused to let her daughter work because of Ji Chang's, she immediately became anxious. "How can we do it if we don't work? How can we earn work points if we don't work? How can we buy food if we don't have work points? What kind of things does the Ji family do? They are willing to go hungry, so as not to harm her daughter." Aunt Ji San and her mother came to her daughter angrily, ready to condemn the Ji family together with her. "Aunt Ji San, I don't have a mother, so taking care of Nagays is my own request." Her mother. "What? Aunt Ji San, I watched this child grow up anyway. He was injured, and I was worried, so I'd better be by his side to take care of him." Her mother thought her daughter was crazy. "Didn't you say yesterday that he was unreliable and wouldn't do his job?" "No, mother, don't listen to the nonsense I talked about yesterday. It's not that Nagasawa didn't work, he was injured. This kid is sensible and has good vision, and he really treats me as his aunt." Aunt Ji San's mother. "Aunt Ji, by the way, mother, you didn't go to your brother and tell the captain, did you? Don't go. Nagasawa will stop working if he can't do it. With uncles and aunts like us, how can we still starve him?" Aunt Ji San's mother. She recalled yesterday's daughter who said angrily that the Ji family was out of their minds, and then looked at the daughter who had become Ji Chui now. "It's over, this is assimilation. Everyone knows I'm a good man." Author, Tang Zhongmao. Chapter 167. Aunt Ji San and her mother also tried to save their daughter. "Don't forget what you told me before. You said that Ji Chang's, your mother-in-law, is a treasure. It's a dream to expect him to provide for you in old age. That is your mother-in-law. Previously, when the eldest son was successful, you thought that he was the eldest son's son. How can a person who has never been to school be successful? Have you forgotten all this? What kind of regulations are you doing now?" It can be seen from her stuttering that Aunt Ji San and her mother were quite frightened by her daughter's abnormality this time. What else can Aunt Ji say? "It's not true. I'm not taking care of my nephew. I'm making an excuse to catch fish and make money." Although her mother is very kind to her daughter, she really doesn't keep her mouth shut. If she says this, just wait for this matter to be spread. Aunt Ji could only maintain her blind persona, that was all because I didn't know Nagaze before. Aunt Ji-san's mother said, you have watched him grow up, and you have known him for more than 20 years and you still don't understand him. Third Aunt Ji, I was prejudiced against him before. She racked her brains, searching for words of praise in her mind, trying hard to find an excuse for why she suddenly no longer looked down on her nephew. I used to think that Nagasawa didn't work. In fact, Nagasawa is like his elder brother. He is smart and smart. He just doesn't like to study. If he loves to study, he will definitely be successful. Then he will be a college student and go to the public house. Food, that's all right. Aunt Ji-san and her mother still don't understand. According to what you said, he is either not smart or he doesn't learn. So what's the use of being smart? He doesn't learn. Aunt Ji. Her mother, can you please slow down your thinking? Aunt Ji couldn't say anything else, so she could only forcefully insist on this point. Isn't it that Nagasawa is young now and doesn't like to learn? He is still young now. In the future, he will love to learn. He must be promising. If he is successful, how can he not give me a hand as an aunt? Her mother. He is a young man in his 20s. No one of his age in the village is already married. It's just him, because he is too out of place and has high vision, so he hasn't even started a family yet. Also, isn't this similar to what my mother-in-law often said before? My grandson just doesn't like to study and he is very smart. He is still young and is not sensible. In the future, as long as he wants to learn, he will definitely become a national talent like my eldest son. It wasn't that Aunt Ji didn't miss her mother's twitching eyes and incredulous expression. She coughed dryly and managed to hold on. She said with a guilty conscience, anyway, mother, don't let your brother go to the captain. Taking care of Nagasawa is of my own free will. I watched him grow up. If he is injured, isn't it normal for me to take care of him? Aunt Ji-san and her mother responded with a complicated expression. No one knows what he was thinking in his heart. Anyway, the eyes he looked at his daughter were quite sympathetic. Aunt Ji-san, forget it, make money and honor your mother. The Ji family started working in full swing. In the name of taking care of her nephew, Aunt Ji quietly took a detour from the mountain to the reservoir. She and Ji Changs found a school of fish, and excitedly took out the net and started fishing. Ji Changs did say that he wanted to go into the water to help, but she refused. This nephew has not worked since he was a child. What if he doesn't help him at first? She still trusts herself more. Ji Changs was on top and said, "Third aunt, you are so kind to me. You still care about me even though I am so old. I know that third aunt treats me as your own son. When I become successful in the future, I will treat third aunt to hello sister, support third sister." For a person who rarely made any boastful words in the past, suddenly his mouth is so sweet. People must not be thinking that this is a sweet talk to deceive others, but that he is sincere. Aunt Ji suddenly worked even harder, and she did not forget to tell Ji Changs, "Changs, you must not come down, the water is cold, and your head is still injured." "Hey, I understand, third aunt. Don't worry, I won't come down." Ji Chang seemed to be resting leisurely, but in fact his mind was still thinking about what he should do in the future. You can't catch fish all the time. No matter how big the reservoir is, there are only so many fish, not to mention it's not their own reservoir. He was holding a piece of grass in his mouth, pondering over it. Suddenly, he had a flash of inspiration, picked up the grass in his mouth, put it in his hand and looked at it carefully. In most small worlds, great agricultural experts would appear around this time, but in the memory Ji Changs received, there was no such agricultural expert in this world. The people across the country will have to endure hunger for a long, long time before we can see the light of day. Aunt Ji-san was getting more and more energetic. If she hadn't thought that if she didn't catch too many, she wouldn't be able to sell them. She would have waited until the next morning to catch them. Dion packed the fish in a bucket and walked back. Ji Chang's wanted to help, but she quickly refused. It wasn't that she felt sorry for her nephew. Although she had changed her opinion of Ji Chang's a lot, she couldn't really treat him as her own son all of a sudden. She is also clever. Ji Chang's has never been allowed to work. If he is asked to carry the fish back, then the rest she gave Ji Chang's before was not in vain. She wouldn't be so stupid as to fall short. Don't take it, don't take it. Just do this kind of rough work. Ji Chang's reached out his hand a few more times, but was pushed back. He could only retract his hand with a helpless look, and sincerely praised, "Third aunt, you are so kind." Aunt Ji-san felt a little guilty. What's wrong with her? She wants to create an image of someone who loves Nagasawa in front of her mother-in-law. Anyway, she has done the job, and of course she will get benefits. In the end, she didn't expect that this child would be so grateful to her, which made her feel embarrassed. Nothing, we're just a family. Aunt Ji smiled awkwardly, carried the bucket, and took a detour with Ji Chang's back to place the fish properly. While she was cooking, she waited expectantly for her family to come back. The Ji family members were also very excited when they were working today. When they thought that the family could make money from these fish and earn food, they worked much more efficiently, and they were even named and praised by the team leader. Everyone felt embarrassed when they were praised. When it was Grandma Ji's turn, she couldn't be more proud. When the captain talked about how hard they worked, she proudly raised her chest and raised her head. This is how our old Ji family is. It's like as my parents said, our whole family loves to work hard and work hard for China. Captain. They looked so proud, as if they were not working in the fields but fighting on the battlefield. Grandma Ji was quite proud. While working, she took the time to promote how capable, smart, and agile her grandchildren were. She hopes to find a wife for her grandson through her promotion. However, when the people in the village heard what she said, they all responded in a perfunctory manner, without even the slightest intention of believing her. Just Ji Chang's. Is he smart? He. The Ji family still didn't know what others thought of Ji Chang's. When they returned home and saw so many fish, they felt happy again. Before Third Aunt Ji could explain her contribution, Ji Chang spoke first. "Nai, Third Aunt took good care of me. She didn't ask me to go into the water even if I had a wound on my head. She caught all these fish by herself. When I came back, I asked to help carry the bucket, but she said she wouldn't burden me, and she carried it all by herself." Grandma Ji immediately expressed her high praise for her daughter-in-law. "I just say that the third family is good. I can rest assured that I will leave this matter to you." Third Aunt Ji was very happy, and she liked Ji Chang's even more. Although this kid Nagasawa seems to be a bit playful and a bit messy, he actually knows how to be grateful. She praised herself, but of course Nagasawa didn't praise her for her good results. When the family was counting fish happily, Ji Chang said, "Mistress, I want to go to the city with you, buy some books and read." Grandma Ji, "Book? What book?" "Just watch and buy," Ji Chang said seriously. "I have been injured recently and I can't run around casually. I just want to read books and learn knowledge. Didn't I follow my dad? People say that studying can make a difference. Maybe if I read the book, I will be successful." Grandma Ji was very happy. In her heart, reading requires talent, and her eldest son has talent, so of course his son also has talent. This is because Nagasawa was too lazy to study before, otherwise, he would have finished studying long ago. The more she thought about it, the more beautiful it became. Grandma Ji excitedly took Ji Chang's arm and walked into the house. As she walked, she said, "Hey, my dear grandson, you are finally sensible and know how to make progress. Bye. Bye. My dear grandson wants to. I'll buy you whatever books you want. Come on, I'll get you the money. It's just right. You guys are going to the city today, and you can still find an excuse to say that you're going to buy books. I'm waiting for my family to make a fortune and lead our family in the future. Enjoy. Seeing her mother-in-law's face filled with happiness, as if Nagasawa could read a book today and be admitted to college the next day, she could enter a public institution and reach the peak of her life. Aunt G said, "What are you thinking about? Is reading such a simple thing? Nagasawa is already so old. He could read even though he didn't study much before. Suddenly he wants to study and make progress. Do you think he is a literary star?" But thinking so in her heart, Aunt G didn't say it stupidly, otherwise she would just wait for her mother-in-law to look down on her. So, when Ji Chang's and the others came back, they brought a few books and let many people see them. I heard that Uncle Ji took his nephew to the city to buy books. Everyone's expressions were like this, equals. What the hell, I didn't study when I was a kid, but now I can get a wife, so what are you looking at? Someone asked about Aunt G. Aunt G. In fact, she thought so in her heart, but she definitely couldn't say it out loud, otherwise the relationship between aunt and nephew, mother-in-law and daughter-in-law that she had just maintained would be ruined again. She could only hold on to her guilty conscience, imitate what her mother-in-law said, and try to sound confident. What do you know? My family is very smart. He used to learn it easily, but if he learns it now, he will definitely be successful. Anyway, there are people who are promising but not promising, as long as they are not bastards. In the future, we uncles and aunts can still enjoy the blessings of Nagasawa. If you don't seek happiness, just don't gnaw at old age. When my parents are serious, they are not serious. Now I stay at home and read every day. I don't know how hard I should work. In fact, she suspected that this was Nagasawa's excuse for not working, but she didn't care. As long as he didn't go out and cause trouble, he could just stay in that house for a year. Villager. They felt that Aunt G was not thinking well. It's not like their Aunt G didn't notice how weird they looked at her. She looks confident on her face, but she is actually miserable in her heart. To tell you the truth, I myself feel that there is something wrong with my brain. Everyone knows I'm a good man. Author, Tang Zhonmao. Chapter 168. The villagers thought that Ji Chang's was reading as an excuse to be lazy, and Aunt Ji also thought that he was reading to be lazy. Even Aunt Ji, the best-tempered second aunt, didn't think that her nephew was really planning to read seriously. She is more inclined towards Nagasawa, a child who wants to make progress. The emphasis is on thinking, not making progress. In the whole family, except Grandma Ji, who firmly believes that her grandson is as talented as her eldest son and is a natural at reading, everyone else maintains a distrustful attitude towards this. Ji Chang's didn't care about this, and just stayed in the room reading his book. The rest of the Ji family didn't complain, they were still in full swing fishing and selling money. Although Ji Chang started the process and spent the rest of the time hiding in the room reading, due to his status as the only male in the family, the whole family automatically converted starting the process into participating in the whole process. Even because of Grandma Ji's unremitting brainwashing, such as how could our family earn this money if it weren't for Nagasawa? Only Nagasawa in the whole village can find such a good place. You guys, second and third, must be nice to Nagasawa. Look at how he has made our family earn so much money at such a young age, and so on. The more she babbled about it, the more convinced she became, and the second wife also believed it wholeheartedly. The only sober Aunt Ji, the third aunt, knew deep down that Ji Chang's had never intervened in this matter. But so what? My nephew is such a pampered person, even if I try to do something about it, he probably won't be able to do much work, and someone might have to look after him. It would be better for him to stay at home and not cause trouble as he is now. That is the greatest contribution he can make. With this thought in her mind, Aunt Ji-san also had a look of agreement on her face. So the matter of Ji Chang's studying at home was accepted smoothly, although no one in the family except Grandma Ji believed that he could really see what he was capable of. After such an ordinary period of time, the fish school was not known to have been caught or moved to another position. The Ji family could no longer catch such a large number of fish. They had known that such a day would come. Looking at the profits they made in the past, the money is quite nice. This fish really came here to bring money to the Ji family, but it was gone just before the Chinese New Year. Will this money allow them to have a good year? With money in her hand, Grandma Ji felt a lot more relaxed. She took the money and went to the city to buy some pieces of cloth and made new clothes for the whole family. Ji Chang's kept counting the time. In the original timeline, the original owner met the little sister brought back by the captain at this time after the Chinese New Year. During this period, he also found excuses to walk around the city several times, and became acquainted with his third sister's father-in-law who lived in the city. He still didn't see any professional begging team, so he probably had to wait until the new year was approaching. Either you have to find it yourself, or you have to find a way to have someone else find it. On the second day of the first lunar month, a married woman returns to her natal home with her son-in-law and children. The three daughters of the Ji family were different this time when they came back. The joy was written directly on their faces and their steps were much lighter. After all, Ji Chang's is always running to the city during this period. He goes to the city to meet the third sister. How can he go to the third sister's mother-in-law's house empty-handed? Naturally, he has to carry something. Sometimes they grow vegetables at home, sometimes they sell leftover fish, and sometimes they cut some meat. The Ji family now has an extra income from selling fish, and Grandma Ji is no longer as demanding as she used to be, and just gives some things, and she gives them to her own granddaughter, so what? These are really small things, but to the third sister and eldest sister living in the city and town, they are the wishes from her mother's family. They do not have land to grow their own crops, so they have to buy whatever vegetables they want. It is not practical to raise chickens, ducks, and fish at home, and their husbands rarely buy them in order to reduce expenses. Therefore, when the younger brother brought these to them, it greatly increased their family status. There are really two differences between having someone in the natal family and having no one at home. At least the two of them can clearly feel that their parents-in-law's attitude towards them is much kinder. The second sister who married in the village was not married because of these vegetables and fish. When Ji Chang's got tired of reading, he went to look for her, either to talk to her or to talk to her husband. Her husband was originally a gangster who only had enough to eat and didn't care about the whole family. He ran around here and there every day without getting home. Second sister Ji couldn't say anything to him. After all, even she could see that these were two brothers-in-law who were favored by her parents-in-law. Her husband couldn't help feeling depressed, so he deliberately vented his anger on his parents-in-law and refused to work. Anyway, if you don't make things easier for me, I won't be an old scalper working hard to help out every day. Don't you favor your brothers? Then let them do their work. To be honest, there would be no problem with his behavior if he didn't have a family, but he is married to a wife, and her wife is the second sister Ji Chang's. His parents themselves were partial, and if they couldn't catch their son who came and went like the wind, they would take it out on their daughter-in-law, not to mention beating or scolding, because after all, the daughter-in-law's natal family lived in the village. It's just that the dirty work is all left to Sister Ji, and whatever delicious food is available at home is hidden for her younger son to eat. Her husband took it easy by hiding out, leaving Sister Ji to suffer alone at home. Ji Urja was dragged into talking to Ji Chang several times before, and he inquired several times overtly and covertly. She didn't even know after the inquiry. After confirming that she had feelings for her husband and didn't want to separate, he gave up on kicking out the second brother-in-law. The idea turned into trying to squeeze the other person to see if they could be transformed. Second sister Ji didn't know these thoughts of Ji Chang's. She only knew that her husband didn't live at home, but after Ji Chang's talked to him several times, he actually started to care about her and protect her. For this reason, Sister Ji's gratitude to Ji Chang's is definitely deep. The three sisters lived a peaceful life and were in a good mood. They were all happy when they returned home. Ji Chang's also greeted them with a smile. After looking around, he found that although the third brother-in-law also smiled on his face, there was a sad look in his eyes. He thought for a while and leaned over. "Brother-in-law, what are you doing? Why do you look unhappy? Is it because my family didn't entertain you well?" "No, no, there is fish and meat here, and the hospitality is quite good." After being deceived by Ji Chang's, the third brother-in-law was really anxious. The third brother-in-law, Qi Bing, is a standard scholar, easy to talk, good-tempered, gentle, and considerate to his wife. The relationship between husband and wife is very good. Now after hearing Ji Chang's words, he quickly waved his hands and shook his head, for fear that his brother-in-law would misunderstand him. Ji Chang still looked suspicious. "Then why don't you look very happy?" Seeing that his brother-in-law still looked like, "Are you unhappy because you came back with my sister?" Qi Bing quickly explained, "It's not because of this, it's because of work." Ji Chang's nodded with sudden realization, put his hand on his shoulder, and said as if the two brothers are good friends, I understand, men will inevitably be a little unsatisfied. Come on, brother-in-law, tell me." Qi Bing: "My brother-in-law has never worked before, so it's useless to tell him." But maybe Ji Chang's expression was too sincere, or maybe he was really under a lot of pressure recently. Qi Bing still couldn't hold it in, and told the story with a sad face. "As I said before, he is a small cotter, engaged in agriculture. His status is not high, but it is not low. He is a middle-aged man. He has a gentle temper, gets along well with his colleagues, and is willing to work at the grassroots level. He is a sincere person. I am sincere and willing to do things, so I have always done well at work. But recently, work has encountered difficulties." Big white moth. Ji Chang sat next to his third brother-in-law and pretended to be listening. "What kind of big white moth?" "That kind of white moth is not from our country. It was introduced from other countries." "What is it called? What kind of foreign invasion?" "When it was young, it looked like a caterpillar, and then it turned into a big white moth." "White moth, it's nothing. The main reason is that when it was young, it gnawed crops, leaves, and everything with leaves. The mountain county not far from us was already suffering from disasters. In our county, we took every precaution. As a result, I still haven't taken precautions. It's okay now. It's not yet time to plant the fields, but I'm afraid that when the time comes, the big white moth will overwinter and eat up all our food." Qi Bing sighed as he spoke. "Tell me, we have finally settled down, and the weather is smooth, the country is peaceful, and the people are safe, but then there is an insect infestation." Ji Chang's understood. "So brother-in-law, the county is planning to take advantage of winter to kill them. I want to exterminate them, but I can't. They are only so big when they become pupae. You can find some if you look carefully. The one in Kaiming County was in the middle of winter. Almost everyone in the county went to look for them. But the winter was over. There are still a lot of bugs popping up out of nowhere, and I can't kill them all, even with pesticides, so I can only watch them destroy the food." The more Qi Bing spoke, the more worried his face became. "It was just heard before, but who knew it would reach our side? Fortunately, we caught up with them to survive the winter, and we still have time to discuss countermeasures. Recently, I have been meeting every day and can't think of any solution to this matter. I just couldn't help but think about it, and it wasn't because I came back with your sister." He didn't forget to explain a few words. Ji Chang's moved his fingers thoughtfully. Brother-in-law, do you have any way to get this guy's pupa? Or his corpse? Qi Bing's face was full of questions. What? After asking, he saw his brother-in-law, who had always been ignorant and lazy, and said with a smile, I have been reading recently, and it is also about agriculture. Get that thing and I will study it. Maybe I can make it. Has the matter been resolved? Qi Bing. Nagaze, don't think about it. Even the experts from the capital can't do anything about this. How can you possibly do anything about it? Ji Chang's was quite confident. Just because the experts can't do anything, doesn't mean I'm dead. Brother-in-law, haven't you heard of it? Seeing his confident look, Qi Bing became curious in his heart. What? Is there anything else he doesn't know? He really asked with a bit of expectation. What haven't you heard of? Ji Chang's, my dad is a scholar. Qi Bing was silent for a while, but he didn't wait for his brother-in-law to continue talking, and then he said dryly, so? I am my father's son. Ji Chang's clapped his hands and said confidently, my dad is a scholar and has a smart mind. As for me, I followed my dad since I was a child, so I am also smart. I didn't like to study before, but now I start to read. It's not enough to solve such a small matter easily. Qi Bing. Inheritance from father to son, can it still be considered like this? He really couldn't accept Ji Chang's genetic theory, but he was also mild-tempered. He was embarrassed to say directly to his brother-in-law, come on, you haven't studied for more than 20 years. It's weird that you can get results by cramming. He could only squeeze out an embarrassed expression. Smiling, he said politely, this doesn't mean that you only need to have a good brain. Reading is like sailing against the current. If you don't advance, you will retreat. Ji Chang's interrupted, yes, I think so too. Since I started studying, I feel that I have made progress every day and have never regressed. Qi Bing. You've never made any progress before, it's strange that you can regress. Over there, Sister Ji noticed that they were talking and came over with a smile and asked, what are you talking about? You are avoiding us. You said that I am smart like my dad. Didn't my brother-in-law encounter a knowledge problem at work? I have gained a lot of insights from reading recently and felt that I could help, so I said that I would help solve it. Sister Ji looked at her younger brother in surprise. Nagaze, can you really help your brother-in-law? Qi Bing, well, actually. Ji Chang's, really. Third Sister Ji's face was filled with happiness. She held her brother's hand and praised, your brother-in-law is worried recently. If you can help him, I will thank you very much and take you to a restaurant for a good meal. Qi Bing. I'm not my wife, do you believe that? Third Sister Ji really believed it so easily. This was also due to Grandma Ji, who kept saying that her grandson was smart like his father when they were children. It was either that he was not smart or that he did not want to learn how to think. In addition, when I came back this time, the whole family praised my cousin, saying that he was capable and smart, because of the discovery of the fish school. Ji Chang said very immodestly that he was making great progress in his studies, and Ji Sanja took the initiative to do it. In the brain, it was replaced with the fact that my cousin has the ability to study. She was delighted. Even if Nagaze can't help, this is still a help. If his cousin helps Qi Bing, it will make her look good. If he didn't have a sibling relationship with her, how could he help? Qi Bing over there watched helplessly as his wife not only did not doubt her brother-in-law's knowledge reserve or learning progress, but instead happily let them have a good chat, and said dryly, daughter-in-law, you quite believe in Nagasawa. Of course, Sister Ji added without hesitation, Nagaze is smart, the whole family knows it. Qi Bing. No matter how smart you are, you can't be better than an expert just by reading a book. He was embarrassed to offend his wife and brother-in-law, so in the end he could only nod and agree. When he turned around, he sent someone to give the chrysalis to Ji Chang's. When he gave it, Qi Bing didn't expect his brother-in-law to give him any solution. In his eyes, it was like a primary school student who felt that he was very powerful after learning multiplication. You can't take the high school exam all at once. Qi Bing quickly forgot about this matter and continued to be busy searching for information, visiting rural areas, and attending meetings with his boss. The county's leadership team has not had a good year. They are scrambling against time and have to deal with it endlessly. But even if they wait until heaven, it does not mean that they can handle it. Qi Bing's eyes were red with anger, and the whole family felt sorry for him. Even Qi's father, who liked to nag the most, recently tried not to talk when his son was resting so as not to disturb him to sleep. He felt that the whole family should take care of their son wholeheartedly at this time. Therefore, my daughter-in-law was very dissatisfied with her return to her parents' home at this time. Qi Bing also knew that his daughter-in-law had returned to her parents' home because Sister Ji handed him a pamphlet when she came back. She said with a smile on her face and said relaxedly, "Nagaze has come up with a solution, so I'll write it down here. Just take it and use it." At this moment, Qi Bing couldn't laugh or cry. "Silly wife, why do you believe what Nagasawa says, but if he says it works, does it really work?" But seeing his wife so happy, he couldn't say anything to hurt her, so he could only accept the booklet and plan to put it away for now and look through it later. As a result, he put it in the study, and Sister G stuffed it into his pocket when she was packing her things. "Look, you are so lost. This is something that can help you. Why did you forget to bring it? Okay, let's go to work." Qi Bing watched the pamphlet go into his pocket. "Yeah, why did I forget it? Fortunately, I have you. Forget it, just make your wife happy." He arrived at the workplace and quickly got into work, and the booklet was taken out and placed on the table. The afternoon's work was still busy and full of anxiety. When he came to his senses, he was already in a hurry to go to the toilet. Qi Bing hurried to the toilet and accidentally dropped the booklet on the ground. He was in a hurry to go. "I didn't care about the toilet, thinking about picking it up when I came back." As a result, when he went to the toilet, the expert sent by the superiors personally came to get the information and saw the booklet on the ground. There is a line of words written firmly on it: "Preventive measures for white moth epidemic." I'm afraid it was written by the comrades here. This kind of work enthusiasm is very good. The white-haired expert felt a little relieved. He knelt down, picked up the book, opened it, and read it. As he looked at it, the expression on his face became serious. "Yes. Why haven't you tried going in this direction? How did you come up with such a good way to use natural enemies to control this invasive species?" The more he watched, the more excited he became. He wanted to do an experiment on natural enemy restraint on the spot. He just did it as he wanted, without caring about anything else. He was so excited that he went back to do the experiment. 5 minutes later, Qi Bing came back. He was stunned when he found that the booklet on the ground was gone. He looked back and forth several times, but after no matter how hard he looked, he couldn't find it and began to feel guilty. Although there was a high probability that the booklet would be useless, it was his brother-in-law who made it for help and lost it without even looking at it. Shame on you. At the end of get off work, Qi Bing couldn't find the brochure. Instead, he heard from his colleagues that the experts from the capital had listened to someone's advice and went to do the experiment in a very excited mood. "I heard that this method was very novel this time. It looked like it is very possible to solve this species invasion, so everyone is very excited." Qi Bing breathed a sigh of relief and became happy. As long as it can be solved, food can grow well. If there is enough food, everyone can have enough food and clothing. Who made the suggestion? If this can be done, it will be a great achievement. I don't know. It was written in a booklet. Experts said it was picked up on the ground. They asked around who dropped it, but no one has picked it up yet. Chi Bing thought it was quite a coincidence and even joked, "I lost a booklet this afternoon. Maybe it was written in the booklet I lost." As he spoke, he suddenly paused. "Oh my god, it couldn't really be the book written by Nagasawa, right? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Everyone knows I'm a good man." Author, Ten Zhong Mao. Chapter 169. After searching around again, he couldn't find the booklet that fell on the ground. Chi Bing thought, could it be that the booklet the experts said was really written by Nagasawa, and immediately overturned this idea. Although Chi Bing has developed a close affection for his brother-in-law because of his love for the house and the fact that his brother-in-law, who has always been ignorant, has become much more sensible recently, he still has a good impression, and he is really interested in finding out how to prevent and control the white moth. Chi Bing didn't believe it 100%. A person who has been dawdling for more than 20 years can come up with methods that even experts can't think of after reading books for a few days. His wife's family were simple people who didn't know a few words, so it was understandable that she could believe this. However, Chi Bing had studied hard for more than 20 years and did not dare to relax even when he was working. "I am making progress in my studies, but I am still not as good as a little finger of other experts." Nagasawa had only been promoted for a few days, so to say he was just trying to make ends meet was an exaggeration. Therefore, after thinking about it, even if the pamphlet could not be found, what the experts saw was the pamphlet, and Chi Bing still did not dare to think that way. He was still looking for the brochure here like a headless fly. Over there, after getting the new direction in the brochure, the expert team started to look up various information as if they had been given a shot of chicken blood. What they had been thinking before was to attack with pesticides, dig out the pupae of the white moth, or capture the white moth manually. However, these methods have had little effect in the previous disaster-stricken areas. The reproductive capacity of this white moth is quite terrible, even if it is the whole country. Everyone in the county tried to catch them, but in the end, a large number of moths would still appear inexplicably and eat the crops. The leaders are anxious. The country of Hua has just stabilized. Although life is getting better day by day, after all, it has experienced ups and downs before, and now is the time when it needs to recuperate the most. The food production itself is small, and there is not enough food. The moth is a disaster, and the people will go hungry again. The experts are also anxious that they can't sleep or eat. They are dreaming about how to overcome this difficulty. But no matter how hard everyone tried, their hair fell out in handfuls, and they still couldn't figure out a solution to the problem. Who would have thought that they would actually find a solution in such a small county? Although the handwriting on the booklet was a bit ugly, the words written on it made all the white-haired experts excited. This is indeed a direction. Since people can't find all the white moths, let their natural enemies find them. It also states in detail that if we can't find suitable natural enemies, we can cultivate them ourselves. However, it only talks in general terms, which makes it difficult for me to read. It seems that the comrade who wrote the method is very involved. While talking, a group of excited experts suddenly realized that they had not yet seen this comrade who had developed new ideas, and quickly asked the colleague who came back with the brochure, which comrade came up with this idea. "Why don't we call him? Let's discuss it together, since he proposed this method, maybe he can also help in finding and cultivating the natural enemies of the white moth." The expert who got the book back was stunned for a moment, and then he remembered what he had just seen inside. He felt that this method was useful, so he excitedly returned to the office to discuss it with everyone, but he did not find the owner of the book first. "Oh, this is a big mistake. But speaking of it, who is it that wrote the booklet?" Although the words look a bit ugly, he may be able to think of using natural enemies to resist white moths, and also propose to independently cultivate natural enemies based on the characteristics of white moths. How can it be the person in Chizhong? Things. In this case, give me the brochure, and I will ask Xiao Lu to invite the person who wrote the brochure, a gray-haired expert suggested. The Xiao Lu he mentioned was the person in charge of the bureau here. I'll go too. I can't wait to communicate and learn from this comrade. The expert who picked up the brochure couldn't hide his excitement and joy. Seeing him like this, the others couldn't help but smile on their faces. Not only are Qi Bing having trouble sleeping and eating these days, thinking about how to solve the problem, but they are also making it worse. It is precisely because I am older and have experienced the most difficult years in China that I know how hard won this kind of life that may be considered poor and backward by other countries is. Although it is poor, it is peaceful, and although it may be hard work, it cannot be a big fish. Big meat, but at least it can fill your stomach. Seeing the damn alien species white moths quickly encroaching on their land and eating people's crops, the experts just wanted to block them with their bodies. But it is useless to block it. This thing is like emerging from the ground. It kills one batch after another and cannot be eradicated at all. The longer they fight with it, the more exhausted the experts become. This kind of the fatigue is not only physical, but also mental. The kind of fatigue that worries that they will never be able to defeat this alien species will cause the Chinese people to fall into famine again. Although it is just a hope now, at least it is a hope with a high probability of performance success. In the office, these white-haired experts smiled with wrinkles on their faces, and their eyes were full of hope and yearning for a better future. 10 minutes later, Qi Bing looked at the book in the leader's hand in disbelief. He rubbed his eyes, then rubbed his eyes. That's right, this is the booklet Nagasawa gave him. What did the leader just say? Is this booklet really useful? Qi Bing's heart was beating loudly. Hearing the words of the leader above him, he carefully raised his hand. Under the eyes of his colleagues who were either surprised or shocked, he swallowed, stood up slowly, and spoke in a very weak tone. He said, "This was given to me by my brother-in-law. He is really weak. If others don't know, how can he not know? His brother-in-law had been pampered by his family since he was a child. He didn't even go to school for a few days. When he was not sensible before, he was either thinking about getting food from his brothers-in-law or wandering around the village. Later, he may have grown up and became sensible. Instead, Fen started reading and was considerate to her sisters. But I haven't read a few books in more than 20 years, so I can solve the problem by just reading it for a short period of time." Although he felt guilty, Qi Bing still tried his best to explain the cause and effect of the matter in a natural way when faced with questions from leaders and experts. After listening to what he said, the leader was still sighing that this method to kill white moths was actually thought up by a young man from the village who had not even graduated from middle school. However, the white-haired expert opened his eyes in surprise. "What are you talking about? The comrade who came up with this method haven't graduated from elementary school yet. How is this possible? If he hadn't graduated from elementary school, how would he know about species invasion, natural enemy restraint, and species cultivation?" Experts really don't look down on Ji Changs when they say this. After all, China has not yet developed. The people have just passed the stage of not afraid of starving to death but cannot eat enough. Food and clothing are still being solved. Even if they go to school, they have no contact to this esoteric knowledge. What's more, from what Qi Bing said, he went to primary school in the village, so it was even less likely that he would be exposed to it. Seeing that the expert's expression was obviously disbelieving, Qi Bing stammered nervously and explained, "Nagaze has not finished elementary school, but he loves learning very much and has been reading during this time." The meaning of the 4 words "this period of time" is indeed literal, but it is not so when it falls into the ears of others. After all, if it is really this period of time, it is impossible to have such a reserve of knowledge. Ever since, Ji Chang's in the minds of experts has become an image of having to drop out of elementary school due to external reasons, but never giving up his desire for knowledge, working hard to study and improve, never giving up, loving learning, loving research, and being diligent. Okay. Okay. The smile on his face deepened, and he said to the leader Qi Bing with some emotion and reassurance, "Your place is very good. The comrades in the institute love their jobs and are dedicated to their work. They never forget to think about their work during vacations. Even ordinary comrades will work hard. Educate yourself. If the whole country is like you, our country will be strong in a few decades." The leader suddenly became excited after hearing these words. This is an expert from the capital. He is much higher in rank than him. Even the county magistrate has to be polite. But now he is praising the comrades in their institute. This really makes people feel proud. Full. He was so happy that he didn't forget to ask, "Look, how about I ask Qi Bing to invite Comrade Ji over? I want to invite you, I want to invite you." Since this comrade can propose this plan, he should also have some ideas on what to do next. "Hey, I'll ask Qi Bing to invite you. You wait in the office first. As soon as they arrive, I will immediately invite him to see you." After sending the experts away, the leader couldn't help but glance at Qi Bing with praise when he turned around. He didn't pay attention to the anxiety on Qi Bing's face. Yes, Qi Bing had always been honest and didn't like to talk much in the office. Although he was considered a small coder, he was far less capable than other coders, so I didn't have any special impression of Qi Bing. I even thought he was a bit dull. But now it seems that Qi Bing was able to accompany his wife back to her parents' home while still thinking about things in the office. How can this be said to be dull? He is clearly a good comrade who is not good at words but works diligently. He patted Qi Bing's shoulder intimately for the first time and said with a smile, "Good boy, I'll ask you to invite your brother-in-law. You did a good job this time." Qi Bing had never been spoken to by his leader in such an intimate tone. He felt the warmth on his shoulders, the tone of praise from the leader, and the appreciative and affirmative eyes. He used to be a small leader to the outside world, but he was a small leader internally. For Qi Bing, who actually had no sense of existence, this moment instantly became the highlight of his life. The leader is affirming him. After realizing this, something seemed to rush directly to his Tianling cap, causing him to stand upright, extremely serious, and replied seriously, "Yes." If he didn't still have some sense, Qi Bing would have wished to salute his leader. He left the house with his head held high and returned home without stopping for a moment. Why did he go home? Because he still had his bicycle at home. If he wanted to take Nagasawa into the city in the fastest way, he would definitely have to ride a bicycle. It was almost dinner time when Qi Bing went back. Sister Ji Sanja had already come back and was busy in the kitchen. Her mother-in-law was a kind little old lady. She happened to meet someone selling a bastard today. She felt that this thing was good for people. "I bought 3 and came back." He was talking to third sister Ji. "This tortoise can live a long time, and people who eat more tortoises can also live longer. Let's do 1 for soup today, and keep the remaining 2. Wait for you in a few days when you go back to your parents' home, take 1 with you to replenish your parents' health." "Mom, how good is this? You paid for this." Just as Sister Ji was flattered and excused herself, Qi's father, who was basking in the sun in the yard, snorted, "I can't even eat 3 of them, so I'm giving them to others." He is the father-in-law. Sister Ji's face was stern, but she was not embarrassed to say anything. However, Qi's mother was not afraid of her husband and argued loudly, "Every time I come to the city to borrow and return books, I always bring something for us. It's either fish or shrimp. I don't know how many times have we given it away. What's wrong with us giving a bastard? If you, old man, Are not afraid that the neighbors will think you are thick-skinned and only know how to eat your daughter-in-law's mother's family. I will have the nerve not to give you a bastard. Nagasawa thinks of us like this. Family, you can't even bear to part with this thing. You are getting stingy as you get older. It's nothing to give something away. It's just fish and shrimp. I can buy it on the street. He has the ability to get something that can't be bought with money. Chi's father actually didn't want to stop his daughter-in-law from giving away the bastard, but he was used to being rough-tongued and would make a few smooth remarks to show off his family status. It was a coincidence that today, just as he was talking, Chi Bing came in. Dad, Mom. Nagasawa has helped our unit a lot today. Not mentioning how Chi's father was slapped in the face, he only said that Chi Bing rode his bicycle to the village and said that Ji Chang's idea was very useful. When their leader asked him to invite people to the unit, the entire Ji family was shocked. What? Even experts from Beijing think Nagasawa's method is good. Aunt Ji was the first to shout out in confusion. She was the one who the whole family couldn't believe. Nagasawa, who has been working hard for more than 10 years and has only worked hard to make progress for a short time in these 10 years. Unlike Aunt Ji, who thought she was still dreaming, Grandma Ji believed in her precious grandson without any doubt. While she raised her head proudly, she remembered that she was an educated grandmother, so she couldn't be too naughty. A bit of reserve appeared on her wrinkled face, but she couldn't hide her joy. In the end, she became 3 points of reserve, 3 points of pride, and 1 point of joy. I've told you a long time ago that our patriarch Ze is exactly the same as his father, both are geniuses. Aunt Ji. Come on, don't expect your mother-in-law to see through the phenomena to see the essence, she is just a bastard. Aunt Ji's third sister-in-law put the realization into her second sister-in-law, who was standing next to her. She knew very well that her second sister-in-law had never believed that Nagasawa could really read in one go. It had to be said that the older generation was indeed not as good at reading as they were. If you know a lot, can you become a genius after studying for 10.5 months without studying for more than 10 years? Second sister-in-law must be thinking the same thing as her. Aunt Ji clapped her hands and said, "Hey, I thought Nagasawa was late in studying now, but I didn't expect him to actually show his ability in reading. Is our Nagasawa really a genius like our elder brother?" Aunt Ji. Chi Bing had always felt that his wife's family was too confident in Nagasawa, but today's incident made him wonder if he had too little knowledge. Maybe a real genius really just reads a book and learns by himself? Even if you have been fooling around for more than 10 years, as long as you want to start making progress, you can still beat ordinary people? Just when Chi Bing began to doubt his life, Ji Chang's came back. He had been studying hard behind closed doors before. After handing the small notebook to Chi Bing, he left the gate and started wandering around the village. Today, when he came back from wandering around and saw Chi Bing, he understood something about it. A surprised smile appeared on Ji Chang's face, and he greeted him enthusiastically. "Is the third brother-in-law here? Is my third sister coming? Let's stay for dinner tonight. After dinner, we two brothers will chat." Chi Bing, who was thinking deeply about whether geniuses can be self-taught, was made extremely comfortable by Ji Chang's warm smile. After all, the two are quite different in nature between an incompetent brother-in-law who is close to him and a capable brother-in-law who is close to him. When he explained his purpose of coming here, Ji Chang's immediately agreed happily. "Okay, I'll go with you, brother-in-law. This is your job, and I will definitely help you." It was obviously to show his face, but when it came to his mouth, it turned into doing Chi Bing a favor. Pian Kaibing was completely unaware of his brother-in-law's idea of a secret exchange. He was suddenly moved again and felt that his brother-in-law was quite generous. Ji Chang sat on the back seat of the bicycle and was carried away comfortably. He did not forget to wave to the Ji family members who came to see him off from behind. "Mistress, Second and third ant, you don't have to wait for me to eat tonight. In order to do things for the country, I am willing to stay in the national unit and eat with honor. After hearing this, Chi Bing's feet almost fell off the pedals. This familiar feeling was almost the same as when his brother-in-law shamelessly cooked at his house. In the past, he would think that he was worthy of being my shameless brother-in-law. It was so natural to say this. Now, Chi Bing pedaled his bicycle with a look of admiration. He is indeed a genius, he is so informal. Everyone knows I'm a good man. Author, Tang Zhonmao. Chapter 170. When the genius Ji Changs came to the unit, he attracted the attention of almost all the staff. News in the institute always spread quickly, especially the leader did not avoid people on this matter. Now the entire institute knew that Chi Bing's brother-in-law had come up with a solution to the big white moth. Method. More than a dozen pairs of eyes fell on Ji Changs and looked at him curiously, trying to figure out from the appearance what kind of master this magical brother-in-law was. At first glance, it looks pretty good. Ji Chang's appearance is still very good, especially Grandma Ji's love for him. The whole family bought fabrics to make their own clothes. Only Ji Chang's clothes were bought by Grandma Ji in the city. They were considered good clothes in this era. In addition, he is fair and clean, and wearing this outfit, he really looks like an educated man. The saying that appearance is justice is no joke. Good-looking people, regardless of gender, can make a very good first impression, especially those who have figured out how to defeat the big white moth. Experts with the filter on him, Ji Chang's words and deeds suddenly seemed so polite and appropriate. Even when he whispered to Chi Bing, he seemed so enigmatic. The person involved, Chi Bing, could only squeeze out a hint of sarcasm when he heard his brother-in-law say, "Brother-in-law, your place looks nice, and he looks quite rich. If I get rid of the big white moth, can I have braised pork for dinner?" Laugh. I almost forgot that Nagasawa's greediness won't stop just because he became a genius. Chi Bing had heard too many stories of his brother-in-law's glorious deeds. He was too lazy to work, hid in the crops and slept, hid food and roasted it at night. The three brothers-in-law took turns eating at home. Because his family is relatively far away from the city, he doesn't come often. Of course, it may also be because his father didn't like to see Nagasawa before. Chi Bing was a little worried that his brother-in-law would reveal his nature of only thinking about eating in front of the experts. Just as he was thinking of a few words of advice, the white-haired expert came out with a happy face. Is this the expert who came up with the solution to the white moth? As soon as he finished speaking, he saw Ji Chang's face clearly. He paused and added, "He is indeed a talented person." Judging from the surprised look in his eyes, it was obvious that he had not expected that this folk master could be so young and handsome. But it was precisely because Ji Chang's looked too young that the experts couldn't help but have some doubts and tentatively asked professional questions. Chi Bing was worried that his brother-in-law wouldn't be able to answer, so he was about to open his mouth to save him, when he heard Ji Chang's next to him answer a series of questions very naturally and fluently. He could understand it at first, but by the end, Chi Bing had become sluggish. Status. He looked at his brother-in-law who was standing next to him and talking, and for a moment he felt as if he was still in a dream. He couldn't quite understand, but the white-haired expert felt like he had found a treasure. He didn't care that they were still standing in the big office, and started discussing with Ji Chang's excitedly. Chi Bing's knowledge had not yet reached this level, and the words of the two mixed with professional terms turned into gibberish in his ears. The expert said, "Yes, we are indeed stuck in this direction. We have also tried ##UN /U0026 UN and *% UN, but we don't know why it doesn't work." His brother-in-law looked confident, the direction was wrong from the beginning. Why not try #%*, or if you have UN #%#, you can try it? Is the person in front of me speaking a lot of professional words Nagasawa? Is it Nagasawa who has been fooling around here and there for more than 10 years? Not only Chi Bing was shocked, but others in the office were also shocked. Whatever level Chi Bing is, they are almost at the same level. Originally, they were a little bit embarrassed when they saw that this master was so young, but now, it was the young man in front of them who looked like he was relying on his face to make a living. The experts talked freely, looking confident and unfazed. But they didn't understand many terms. This is really an expert. Even Chi Bing himself, looking at his brother-in-law, gradually changed from confusion to admiration. Oh my God, a genius is a genius, so it doesn't matter. Ji Chang's balabala talked with the excited expert for a long time. Seeing that the white-haired old man was getting more and more excited as he talked, and had no intention of finding a place to sit down and talk slowly, he interrupted him with a dry cough. "What, I'm a little hungry, is it time to eat?" As he said that, he raised his eyes and looked at Chi Bing. "Brother-in-law, what do you usually eat for lunch in your place? Is there any meat?" Chi Bing, who was thinking that his brother-in-law was actually a genius. His face was full of embarrassment, and he looked around carefully at his colleagues and experts, fearing that they would be dissatisfied with Nagasawa for asking for food as soon as he arrived, but no one around him showed anything wrong. Especially the expert, who immediately said with a smile, "Yes. Whatever Comrade Nagasawa wants to eat, I will have someone prepare it." Ji Chang's helped them provide them with methods and directions to deal with the big white moth, but they just wanted some meat to eat, so of course they had to be satisfied. Such a talent, with such a level, who helps solve problems without asking for any other benefits but only wants to eat meat. This is simply a typical example of not seeking fame or gain. And since he can make requests to eat meat in public, doesn't it mean that he is upright and upright? The country needs such good comrades. Ji Chang said that he wanted to wait for the meal, so he found a chair and sat down, as if he was waiting for the meal. The expert went to find his colleagues and planned to meet this young but very knowledgeable comrade. Seeing that the experts were calling for help, Chi Bing cautiously approached Ji Chang's and whispered, "Chang's, where did you learn all that knowledge? I didn't even understand it when I was standing next to you just now. I read it in the book. Don't the county libraries have it?" Chi Bing, but if I remember correctly, you have only read the book for a few months. Ji Chang's looked like, isn't this normal? Isn't a few months enough? I can read several books a day, but unfortunately the library doesn't let me borrow too many books at once, so I have to read them every few days these few months. Go borrow it again. Chi Bing. He thought about when he heard from his wife that Nagasawa would go to the county to borrow books in a few days. What was he thinking at that time? How many days does it take to finish reading a book? Even if you really read it, you can't understand it thoroughly. I guess my brother-in-law is looking for an excuse to go to the county to play. Hey, there is no way. He is still a young man after all, and he is inevitably a little playful. When he really grows up, he will know that this kind of wasting time pretending to work hard is not only ineffective but stupid. And now I'm slapped in the face. Chi Bing couldn't help but cover his face that seemed to be in pain, feeling that he was the one who was really stupid. Ji Chang's did not lie. What he just discussed with the experts was indeed from the county library. This is also thanks to the county magistrate, who originally determined the tone of the party to vigorously develop science and technology, strive to cultivate talents, and strive to catch up with the international community as soon as possible. After crossing the road, he gritted his teeth and built the largest library in the county. Like a hamster, he bought books and put them in it whenever he got the chance. Naturally, today's libraries do not have the kind of scale that was arranged by book type in later generations, but precisely because they are not large, they have all kinds of books. The librarian has the same hamster-gathering temperament as the county magistrate. It doesn't matter what kind of books he has, as long as useful, as long as it contains knowledge, he can find a way to buy it and put it in the library. And it was precisely because of the two people's nurturing intentions that Ji Chang's had such a loophole to exploit. The things he said were indeed from the books, and the ideas he proposed were also derived from the knowledge in the books. Anyone who read the books he borrowed would agree, but if others read them at the end of these books, he proposed the same idea as Ji Chang's, but it would be difficult to copy that knowledge. After making sure it was safe, Ji Chang sat leisurely on a chair and chatted with his third brother-in-law. Brother-in-law, I have helped you this time, right? It seems like what I said is quite useful. Qi Bing was confusedly digesting the news that my brother-in-law is really a genius. When he heard this, his heart felt warm. Yes, why was my brother-in-law discovered to be a genius? Wasn't it because he wanted to help me? Help. As soon as he figured it out, the proud smile on his face couldn't stop. He patted Ji Chang's on the shoulder, his face full of joy. Chang's, you really make your brother-in-law look good. You have been a big help this time. This matter may really be solved. Ji Chang's also laughed, looked around at the staff who were looking at him curiously, and whispered in Qi Bing's ear, you guys look quite rich, brother-in-law, since I helped, won't you pay me? The proud smile on Qi Bing's face froze. Although it is human nature to want rewards, Nagasawa's image as a master in the world was still in his eyes. Suddenly, the master lifted up the cow's rusty skin, revealing what was underneath. Shameless, no, it's a face that doesn't care much about image, and just wants to gain benefits by joking. This picture, I can only say that it's a good thing that it was not seen by experts. There should be some, right? After thinking about it, Qi Bing answered his brother-in-law's question honestly, if you can really solve the problem, you will have done a great job. After hearing what he said, Ji Chang's smile deepened on his pretty face. He bumped into Qi Bing's shoulder and winked at him, when the reward comes, let's go have a big meal. What should we eat? I still like it braised pork, brother-in-law, have you ever eaten goose meat? Duck meat seems to be good too. Qi Bing. The lofty image of genius was shattered. It wasn't until the expert called someone and excitedly pulled Ji Chang's away. A group of middle-aged and elderly people gathered around a young man, talking to each other while walking away, that Qi Bing's colleagues dared to surround him. Come up. Brother Qi, what did that guy say to you? He smiled so happily. Is there a way to deal with that big white moth? This is what I was expecting the big white moth to solve quickly. Qi Bing, that's really your brother-in-law. Why didn't you tell me earlier if you had this relationship? Are you treating your brother as an outsider? Let me tell you, our country is now vigorously supporting talents. What your brother-in-law just told the experts, even though I don't understand, I can tell that he is very powerful. Seeing how he was talking and laughing with you just now, he will definitely support you in the future. It's great. This is because Qi Bing has such a powerful brother-in-law to help him. What did he just tell you? I just watched quietly and found that he talked a lot, almost never stopping. Was he teaching you something? Isn't it convenient for you to tell us? You see, I have brought my notebook. It's about trying to seize every opportunity to learn. Although colleagues surrounded Qi Bing and asked questions for different reasons, what is certain is that everyone thought that Ji Chang's expert just said something serious to Qi Bing. Qi Bing, who had been thinking about the delicious food for a while, said, I don't want to talk.